Hi everyone, welcome back to Radio Night Crime. Before you drift off, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. If you're enjoying the stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's relax and jump into tonight's case. Story 1. Lately, P. Diddy has been all over the media, becoming the focal point of a media storm, and people have been asking about his connections to top stars like Beyoncé and Jay-Z. Dark secrets are gradually being uncovered within the billion-dollar empire of Hollywood's most powerful couple. They used to be admired for their love and successful careers, but now they're facing allegations that could destroy everything. The arrest of Diddy's close friend has raised suspicions about them, ranging from accusations of assassination and drug trafficking to mysterious schemes tied to the Illuminati. Is it possible that behind the glamour of this power couple, there's a dangerous game of power and conspiracy? In the early days, Jay-Z and Diddy decided to use their fame to build a billion-dollar empire. They weren't just music partners. They were also close friends who stood by each other through life's ups and downs. Diddy even once shared that only his mother and Jay-Z were allowed to call him by his real name. Their fates became even more intertwined in 1999 when both faced legal troubles. Diddy was arrested for a nightclub shooting and Jay-Z was involved in an assault case. At the beginning of the trial, the rapper denied having anything to do with the incident, but he later admitted to it and received 3 years of probation. Over the years, they've stayed by each other's side, weathering challenges together. But behind this close friendship, are there dark secrets the public has never known? Now, as Diddy faces serious accusations, the question is Jay-Z truly innocent? Or has he also been pulled into the underworld he and Diddy may have built together? Alongside his massive success, Jay-Z has had his fair share of scandals. Early in his career, he was rumored to have questionable relationships with young women. One of the most shocking rumors involved female rapper Foxy Brown, who was just 15 at the time. People claimed that Jay-Z pressured her into a relationship in exchange for advancing her career, sparking widespread controversy throughout the 1990s. These claims mirror what Diddy has been accused of doing with Cassie. Although these allegations were never clearly proven, they have left a stain on the rapper's career. Jay-Z and Foxy Brown started working together and released hits with lyrics that raised eyebrows. Former classmates of Foxy Brown reported that 27-year-old Jay-Z would often pick her up from school, and it was no secret that they were involved with each other. They also claimed that during that time, rumors spread across the school about Jay-Z filming an explicit video featuring Foxy Brown, actor Jamie Foxx, and himself. Foxy Brown was allegedly pressured into signing an unfair agreement that forced her to stay silent about everything to protect Jay-Z's reputation. As he held significant power in the industry, despite Foxy Brown's efforts to keep her complicated relationship with Jay-Z under wraps, the truth eventually came out. In a shocking interview, one of Jay-Z's former business partners openly criticized him, calling on the rapper to address what had happened with Foxy Brown. Adding to the controversy, rapper Nas, a colleague of Foxy Brown, hinted at their complicated relationship in a diss track aimed at Jay-Z. Meanwhile, one of Diddy's former bodyguards strengthened these allegations by revealing that Foxy Brown had been under immense pressure and exploited. He even suggested that she could be a key witness in several cases, including the infamous murder of Tupac Shakur. The claims about Jay-Z manipulating Foxy Brown became even more credible when compared to his other relationships within the music industry. Jay-Z's former business partner, Damon Dash, revealed that he severed ties with the rapper after observing his suspicious behavior toward young women, particularly his closeness with R. Kelly, a convicted abuser with multiple charges involving minors. R. Kelly's illegal relationship with singer Aaliyah was exposed when it was revealed that she was only 15 years old at the time. The two even forged documents to get married in 1994. While R. Kelly claimed he didn't know Aaliyah was underage, audio recordings later proved otherwise. Aaliyah eventually appealed to have the marriage annulled. There were even rumors that Jay-Z once had feelings for the beautiful young singer. With her angelic voice and captivating beauty, Aaliyah quickly became a global music sensation. Her albums consistently broke sales records, putting her name alongside the biggest stars in the R&B world. Many predicted that Aaliyah was destined to become the queen of the genre. Her meteoric rise to fame caught the attention of Jay-Z, who allegedly planned to leverage her popularity to boost his personal brand. Aaliyah's beauty, talent, and fame made her the center of attention for many men, including Jay-Z. He reportedly expressed his feelings for her with lavish bouquets and enticing invitations. However, Aaliyah's heart at the time belonged to Damon Dash. She felt safe and happy with him, even dreaming of a bright future together. Tragically, those dreams were cut short when Aaliyah passed away on August 25, 2001. Aaliyah's sudden death in a plane crash left many questions unanswered. The last-minute decision to change the video shoot location from Miami to the Bahamas site of the crash fueled speculation of a possible assassination plot. On August 22nd, the singer had flown to Miami to film a dance scene directed by Hyde Williams. The first warning sign came when, at the last moment, the director decided to move the shoot from Miami to the Bahamas. Why the sudden change of location? Could he have known about a plan to assassinate Aaliyah? Of course, these are just theories. After Aaliyah's tragic passing, reports revealed that the pilot of the doomed plane was intoxicated and lacked the proper certification to fly that type of aircraft. However, many believe this explanation was just a distraction, meant to shift the blame away from those truly responsible for the crash. Some suggest a conspiracy to hide the truth and pin everything on the pilot. A shocking fact emerged. Aaliyah didn't even want to board that fateful flight. In her book, music journalist Katie revealed that the singer was extremely reluctant when faced with the plane. The person who drove Aaliyah to the airport recalled that when she saw the aircraft, she flat out refused to board and even went back to the car. After much persuasion, Aaliyah finally agreed to get on the plane. But it was clear she wasn't doing so willingly. One suspicious detail came to light. Before boarding the plane, Aaliyah was allegedly given a pill that caused her to fall into a deep sleep. This revelation only fueled more theories about a possible conspiracy surrounding the singer's death. What really happened that day? Who was behind it all? Some conspiracy theories point fingers at Jay-Z and Diddy, accusing them of being involved in Aaliyah's death. These theories claim the two artists used their influence to remove Aaliyah and clear the path for Jay-Z's then-girlfriend Beyoncé to rise to prominence. Although Beyoncé has publicly stated that she met Jay-Z when she was 18, other sources tell a different story. According to these accounts, the pair first crossed paths earlier, when Beyoncé was just 16 years old during the filming of Destiny's Child's music video No No No. Beyoncé even admitted that 6 months after meeting, they began a romantic relationship, at which point she was 17 and Jay-Z was 30. After Aaliyah's death, Beyoncé entered a new phase of her career. She didn't just remain a singer, but became a cultural icon and an inspiration to millions worldwide. By this time, Beyoncé and Jay-Z had secretly tied the knot, and her solo career soared to new heights with Jay-Z's support. The fame of Beyoncé and Jay-Z has brought with it countless rumors and dark conspiracy theories. From accusations of being tied to secret organizations like the Illuminati, to claims of selling their souls for fame, the couple has always been at the center of endless controversies. A prime example is the song She Knows, which many people have twisted to spread negative narratives aimed at tarnishing Beyoncé's image. But is it fair to blame Beyoncé when she might actually be the victim? Singer Jaguar Wright, who has worked on multiple music projects with Jay-Z and his associates, has been vocal for years, urging people to listen to her side of the story. According to Jaguar Wright, Jay-Z is a manipulative figure who has controlled and exploited Beyoncé through methods like substance use. She has boldly demanded that Jay-Z come clean about the truth and stop using intimidation tactics, even declaring that she's ready to face him in court. Wright has repeatedly condemned the wrongful actions of both Jay-Z and Diddy, expressing her belief that their downfall is inevitable. And now it seems like her words might be coming true. Some of Jaguar Wright's claims appear to hold some truth. Since marrying Jay-Z, Beyoncé has noticeably withdrawn from the spotlight in an unusual way. Her public appearances have become significantly less frequent, with some years having only a handful of sightings. This behavior stands out, especially when compared to her earlier image as an A-list star who loved the public's attention. Rarely is Beyoncé seen by paparazzi in her day-to-day life, whether it's shopping or simply walking down the street. This is quite unlike what one might expect from an internationally renowned superstar. At times, Jaguar Wright has called on her fans to launch a movement similar to #FreeBritney, aiming to draw attention to Beyoncé's situation. She claims that Beyoncé is in danger and describes Jay-Z as an abuser. I used to hope that Jay-Z's conscience would wake up, but now I'm increasingly worried about Beyoncé's situation. If Jaguar Wright's allegations about Jay-Z using substances to control his wife are true, this would be deeply condemnable. Beyoncé deserves to live freely and happily. It's hard to fully believe Jaguar Wright's accusations, but it's important to remember that she isn't just an outsider. She's someone with deep ties to the entertainment industry. While her claims are shocking, it's notable that no artist has sued her for defamation. This suggests there might be some truth to her words. In fact, there have been similar allegations about Beyoncé's use of substances in the past, adding weight to the suspicions surrounding the singer's personal life. But the bigger question is, why would Jay-Z feel the need to control Beyoncé to such an extent? Could there be other secrets that are being hidden? Many have questioned the relationship between Beyoncé and Jay-Z. A former bodyguard of theirs once revealed that their marriage might just be a business arrangement designed to create a power couple in the entertainment industry. This perspective seems more believable when you consider the enormous wealth the pair has accumulated. Some argue that Beyoncé has become a part of Jay-Z's brand, with her personal freedom being limited for the sake of their shared image. Loyal fans of Beyoncé have also expressed concern over noticeable changes in their idol's behavior. Recently, many have pointed out clear differences in how Beyoncé appears in public. Her distant demeanor and repetitive, robotic actions have raised questions about her current state. These concerns became even more pronounced after a recent video surfaced showing Beyoncé swaying strangely with a vacant look in her eyes, leaving fans deeply worried. We can't ignore Cassie's lawsuit against Diddy late last year. She accused him of abuse, coercion into substance use, and controlling her life. This situation has only added fuel to the suspicions surrounding Beyoncé's environment, especially given Jay-Z's close relationship with Diddy. In fact, Cassie's lawsuit even mentioned the names Beyoncé and Jay-Z, suggesting there may be deeper connections between these figures. In her lawsuit, Cassie described an incident at one of Diddy's parties where she was physically assaulted by him. Following the altercation, Cassie locked herself in a room to calm down. When she eventually decided to leave, she was shocked to find Beyoncé and Jessica Alba waiting in the lobby. Both appeared visibly upset and angry about Diddy's violent behavior. When Diddy and Jay-Z showed up, the tension escalated. Beyoncé didn't hold back and openly criticized Diddy, even shouting at him. Under pressure from Beyoncé, Diddy reportedly dropped to his knees and apologized to both her and Jessica Alba. Cassie also revealed that Beyoncé expressed disappointment with Jay-Z for continuing his friendship with Diddy despite his troubling behavior. The situation escalated further when another guest at the party reported the incident to the police. However, as usual, Diddy denied all accusations. What's particularly interesting is that in Cassie's initial lawsuit, the entire incident, including Beyoncé and Jay-Z's reactions, was detailed in full. Yet, in the final version of the lawsuit, about 30 pages of content related to the famous couple were mysteriously removed. Recently, rumors of Beyoncé and Jay-Z heading toward a divorce have been circulating more frequently. Meanwhile, Beyoncé has been actively expanding her business ventures, branching into diverse fields such as perfumes, whiskey, country music, film, and more. These moves have sparked curiosity among the public, with many wondering if she's preparing for a more independent and self-reliant future. These bold activities stand in stark contrast to the typically quiet and private image Beyoncé has maintained in public. This shift has led some to speculate about what might be happening behind the scenes. However, jumping to the conclusion that Beyoncé is intentionally creating a new public image to hide personal issues is completely unfounded. Comparisons of Beyoncé to historical tragedies like the 9/11 terrorist attacks or the assassination of President Kennedy are absurd and baseless. Clearly, these accusations are nothing more than malicious rumors intended to tarnish her reputation. What other red flags have we overlooked in the powerful relationships within the entertainment industry? Take Rihanna's case, for example. In 2005, at just 16 years old, Rihanna signed a contract with Jay-Z. For a young, inexperienced girl like Rihanna, signing a deal with a powerful figure like Jay-Z undoubtedly came with immense pressure and a clear imbalance of power. Rihanna herself once shared her experience in an interview. She recalled that Jay-Z told her, "There are two ways you can leave here. One is by signing the contract and walking out the front door, and the other is through the window. But we're on the 29th floor." This statement exposed the significant power gap and lack of options Rihanna had at the time. The fact that she was pressured to sign the contract at 3 a.m. after hours of meetings only highlights this further. Rihanna's revelations raise questions about what really happens behind the scenes in the entertainment industry. How many more stories like Rihanna's remain untold? Both Jay-Z and Diddy are undeniably influential figures in the entertainment world. Their status and power allow them to shape decisions that can impact the lives of many people. As we've discussed before, Jay-Z and Diddy share surprisingly similar life trajectories. Recall Diddy's video where we mentioned the rumors surrounding the death of his wife, Kim Porter. Similarly, there are allegations that Jay-Z may have been involved in the untimely death of one of his former partners. These parallel events in the lives of both Jay-Z and Diddy only deepen the intrigue surrounding their complex relationships and the unresolved mysteries in the lives of these celebrities. Jay-Z's infidelity to Beyoncé became public knowledge after she released her album Lemonade. So when details about his extramarital affairs came to light, the public wasn't exactly surprised. One of the names frequently mentioned was Katie White, who was involved with Jay-Z before he married Beyoncé. When rumors about their relationship spread, tabloids quickly jumped on the story. Some sources claimed that Katie reached out to Jay-Z, saying she would stay quiet about everything if she received a certain amount of money. 2 weeks after that call, Beyoncé announced she was pregnant, and just hours later, Katie passed away from a brain aneurysm. The strange circumstances surrounding the sudden death of a young woman and the events leading up to it sparked speculation about Jay-Z's involvement. However, Jay-Z's friends denied any connection between him and Katie. In the entertainment industry, rumors and suspicions are always swirling, and for someone as famous as Jay-Z, getting caught up in scandals isn't uncommon. In addition to rumors of emotional abuse and suspicions surrounding the deaths of young women, Jay-Z has also faced accusations of having a secret child. For years, someone has been trying to get him to take a DNA test, but the rapper has repeatedly refused. The boy's mother claims that she had an intimate relationship with Jay-Z in 1992, but chose not to go public at the time. She said she was devastated by the news of Jay-Z and Beyoncé expecting twins and even filed a lawsuit demanding that Jay-Z take responsibility. Do you know why Jay-Z might be avoiding a paternity test? Because it would reveal that he was involved with a minor. At the time of their relationship, the boy's mother was only 16 years old. After Diddy's scandals were exposed and investigations began, Jay-Z and Beyoncé seemed to vanish from the spotlight. According to an exclusive report by Page 6, influential figures in the music industry have been trying to track down the couple, but to no avail. Jay-Z's sudden disappearance, especially as someone known to have a close relationship with Diddy, has only fueled public curiosity. Many sources suggest that Jay-Z is scrambling to prepare for potential fallout from Diddy's lawsuits, including seeking legal counsel and possibly making financial moves. Recent accusations by Nicki Minaj about the connection between Jay-Z and Diddy have raised even more questions about what's really going on in the entertainment industry. We can't ignore the truth of what's been happening behind the scenes all these years. In fact, there have long been rumors about inappropriate behavior in the industry, and the silence of insiders and employees surrounding these stories only deepens the public's suspicions. Jay-Z, who is known to have been close friends with Diddy, appears to be trying to distance himself from his friend's legal troubles. However, the scale and severity of the current situation make it increasingly difficult to deny any potential involvement. When two people have maintained a close relationship for decades, building businesses together, attending social events, and sharing an intimate understanding of each other's personal lives, is it really possible to be completely unaware of the other's wrongdoing? It's hard to believe that someone could have no idea or suspicions about the illegal activities their close friend might be involved in while public attention has largely focused on Beyoncé. Another layer of the story has been revealed by a former owner of Def Jam Records. He made serious accusations claiming that not only Jay-Z but also Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre were well aware of the misconduct happening in the music industry, particularly towards young artists. According to him, despite knowing about these actions, they chose to stay silent and let things continue as they were. These revelations have further fueled suspicions about a system of mutual protection within the entertainment industry, where power and money overshadow accountability for wrongdoing. The repeated allegations of abuse, drug trafficking, and other illegal activities leave the public questioning the ethics of the stars they once admired. The relationship between Diddy and Jay-Z is complex and filled with controversy. While no concrete evidence has emerged yet, the accusations have raised significant questions about the ethics and responsibilities of influential figures in the entertainment world. This is a story that needs ongoing scrutiny to uncover the full truth. The relationship between Diddy and Jay-Z is complex and filled with controversy. While no concrete evidence has emerged yet, the accusations have raised significant questions about the ethics and responsibilities of influential figures in the entertainment world. This is a story that needs ongoing scrutiny to uncover the full truth. Story 2. In cold places like Canada, finding fresh, flavorful fruit that doesn't cost a lot can be really hard. Apples, in particular, are often disappointing. They can be too sour, too bland, or sometimes even taste like sawdust. But if you've ever had a Honeycrisp apple, you know it's a total game changer. From the outside, it might look ordinary, but one bite, and it's super crisp, sweet, and juicy. It makes you forget about all the other apples. And even though it's a bit more expensive, the Honeycrisp is a favorite for many because it tastes so good. But few could have imagined that this beloved apple would be part of a crazy 12-year scam. Behind its beautiful skin was a complicated scam that took people's money and their dreams. And this scam spread all over the world to China, Canada, India, and other countries. It even involved some politicians, including a former Canadian deputy prime minister. The complicated relationships, the unbelievable amount of money involved, and the complexity of the plan made it almost impossible to escape, even for the most careful people. The saying, "Better one fresh peach than a basket of rotten plums," has never been more true. So what secrets are hiding behind the skin of the Honeycrisp apple? What's the story behind this perfect-looking fruit? Our story takes place at Orchard of the Bay, located on beautiful Prince Edward Island. It's a small province in eastern Canada with a lot of people. Locals like to joke that everyone on the island is almost like next-door neighbors. The island is connected to mainland North America by a long bridge over sparkling blue waters. Prince Edward Island is famous for both its beautiful stretches of red sand beaches and its lush green apple orchards, showing the island's agricultural history. But most people don't know that. Aside from the busy tourist season in the summer, Prince Edward Island is a peaceful and beautiful place during the other 3 seasons. It's the perfect time to explore the island's natural wonders, breathe in the crisp, clean air, and experience the slow pace of island life. In the fall of 2014, the island's peace was suddenly broken by a visitor named Amarjeet Jatna. It was a name that the locals didn't recognize. They could tell he was from India just by looking at him. From here on, we'll just call him AJ. AJ wasn't alone. He had a group of people with him, including a driver and a cameraman. The group drove onto the island, driving past the famous red sand beaches and old lighthouses that are popular with both tourists and locals. Finally, they arrived at their destination, a lush green apple orchard. The orchard's owner was an old local who had worked this land for almost 30 years, his life following the rhythm of the seasons. The orchard covered over 40 hectares with almost 1,000 apple trees, their branches overflowing with apples. In the fall, when the apples turned a beautiful red, the orchard looked like a stunning sight, a sea of red stretching across the land without even asking permission. AJ and his cameraman got out of the car and started taking pictures among the apple trees. Then, he picked an apple, took a bite, and said with a disgusted tone, "This apple tastes awful." He wasn't completely wrong. The old man grew Macintosh apples, a local kind of apple. They might not be as sweet as some imported apples, but they produced a lot of apples and lasted a long time, which were important things to consider when running, and the orchard owner mainly sold his apples to stores on the island and factories that made apple products, which is why he grew this kind of apple. AJ took out a shiny apple from his pocket and said to the old man, "Try this one." It was a Honeycrisp, the apple we've been talking about. The Honeycrisp apple is known for its sweet taste and high price. It's like the Rolls-Royce of apples. AJ saw that the old man was quiet, so he said directly, "I'm the biggest apple supplier in Canada. I came here to find you, to partner with you, and to buy this orchard. I'll replace all the trees with Honeycrisps." The old man let out a hearty laugh when he heard AJ's offer. "You think I don't want to grow Honeycrisps?" He chuckled. "When I first started this orchard many years ago, I dreamed of growing that prized apple, but it's not that easy." He explained that Honeycrisp apples demanded rich, fertile soil packed with nutrients. If the soil didn't have the right minerals, the apples would get unsightly black spots, impacting its quality and market value. Also, birds and insects loved to eat them. If he didn't protect them carefully, the apples would be devoured before they were even ripe. Putting each apple in a bag to protect it from pests was costly and labor-intensive, and Honeycrisp apples were easily bruised and had to be picked by hand very carefully, which significantly increased production costs. Because of all these problems, the old man reluctantly abandoned his dream of growing Honeycrisps. But AJ smiled confidently and said, "We can take care of all your concerns. I've done some research on the soil here." He pulled out a research paper from the University of Manitoba showing that the red soil here is rich in iron and perfect for growing apples. He explained that the humid air from the sea means you don't need to water the trees as much and helps the roots grow deeper. With a little fertilizer each year, the trees will grow strong and produce a lot of apples, he said. Then he talked about harvesting. In India, he said, there are a lot of workers and we can easily send a team over to help you with the harvest. After spending his whole life working on this orchard, the old man didn't want to cut down the trees that had been with him for so long. But after hearing AJ's threats about competition, he started to worry. "It's okay if you don't partner with us?" AJ continued, his voice becoming more serious. "But think about the future of this orchard. Once mine is up and running, our delicious high-quality apples will be the most popular apples on the market. Your apples, with their ordinary taste and no brand name, will be hard to sell. Think of it like a small hamburger joint next to a McDonald's. It's a tough business." Angered by AJ's threats, the old man's temper snapped. Without saying another word, he told AJ to leave his land. But before AJ could step out of the gate, the old man shouted across the orchard, his voice loud and fierce, "Even if every apple on my trees goes bad, I'll never sell this orchard to you." Sensing the old man wasn't going to give in, AJ decided to take things to the next level. He bought a huge piece of land right next to the old man's orchard, a lot more than twice its size. To celebrate and get people talking, AJ's company, Canadian Nectar Products, threw a massive party to open the new orchard. The Premier of Prince Edward Island, Robert Giz, along with former Canadian Deputy Prime Minister Sheila Copps, and a bunch of other high-ranking officials showed up for the event. It was even broadcast live on several TV channels, grabbing the attention of people all across the province. During his speech, AJ made a big promise. He said his company would bring the best apples to Canadians and even export them to India, showcasing the island's treasures to his home country. The very next day, the front page of the local newspaper boldly announced, "Honeybee to turn Prince Edward Island into the world's biggest apple hub." The news left the entire island buzzing with excitement and worry. Over at his small orchard, the old man started to feel the heat. With AJ splashing money everywhere and drawing so much attention, it seemed like the region was quickly becoming his private apple empire. Land prices shot up, making property taxes much harder to afford. If things kept going like this, the old man feared his orchard wouldn't stand a chance, could go broke or even get swallowed up by AJ's ambitions. In desperation, the old man went to see a lawyer and hoped to sue AJ and Canadian Nectar Products for being unfair. But after some thought, the lawyer told him to drop it. The pressure from outside forces was just too much. The local government openly supported big investors like AJ, because Prince Edward Island, with its small population and tourism-focused economy, badly needed new money coming in. If the old man filed a lawsuit, he'd likely find himself on the wrong side of the government. Plus, AJ wasn't just a businessman. He was incredibly well-connected. Former Deputy Prime Minister Sheila Copps wasn't just there for the speeches. She was a major shareholder in AJ's company and a very influential figure. On top of that, several members of Parliament also held stakes in Canadian nectar products. Fighting AJ meant going up against a powerful political machine that the old man couldn't possibly beat. AJ had cleverly used the huge popularity of the Honeycrisp apple to pull influential people into his network, building an empire that was almost untouchable. If the orchard owner tried to sue, he'd basically be going up against an unstoppable system all on his own. But some people didn't think that was the full story. They thought the politicians were so into Canadian nectar products, mostly because of Gurmit Gruel, a very influential MP from the Conservative Party. Gruel, who was also from India, used his connections to bring powerful politicians into the project. Through his network, Gruel got the Premier, the Provincial Council President, and a ton of other MPs on board with Canadian nectar products. He even gave some of these politicians shares in the company. One of them was the former Deputy Prime Minister. It was obvious this wasn't just about the apples anymore. It was about the money, the connections, and the political power the project could bring. These politicians didn't just care about enjoying great apples. They were in it for the profits and the influence. When the old man realized this, he was devastated. He felt completely disappointed and helpless. The orchard he had spent the last 30 years loving and caring for now felt like it was slipping out of his hands, taken over by these two men from India. Slowly, the old man began to notice something wasn't right. The orchard, which was supposed to thrive, was instead struggling. The young trees that had been planted earlier seemed ignored. They were left to suffer through freezing winters and dry summers without proper care. By fall, while other orchards were full of ripening apples, Honeybee's orchard looked bare. Its branches were thin and empty, with just a few lonely apples scattered here and there. The old man couldn't shake the thought where all the big promises about this orchard just lies. After spending his whole life nurturing trees, he came to a shocking conclusion. Canadian nectar products plans had almost nothing to do with growing apples. There was something much bigger and far more troubling happening behind the scenes. Later, documents revealed that Canadian nectar products went through major changes in 2017. A man named Kamalpreet Kaur, also from India, became the company's biggest shareholder, controlling 39% of it, and took over as CEO. What caught everyone off guard was that Kaur had zero experience in farming. Before Honeybee, he worked as an immigration consultant, running companies like AIA and CWC with offices in both Canada and India. To many people, putting an immigration expert in charge of an agricultural company seemed strange and raised a lot of questions about what the company was really up to. When you put together all the connections between these three men from India, it created a complicated and messy picture. Immigration and farming were clearly two very different things. But then, AJ shared a development map that showed what might actually be going on. The orchard wasn't just for growing apples. It was being divided into smaller plots and marketed as a high-return investment for Indian investors. Kamalpreet, with his experience in immigration, decided to expand the plan. He divided the land into smaller pieces, some with only a few trees on them. Who would buy a tiny piece of land with only a few trees on it? It didn't make any sense. Was it even worth it to ship a few apples from Prince Edward Island? Then, something surprising showed up on the Immigration Service website. Investors with Canadian tourist visas. This line, combined with project ads claiming it was backed by the Canadian government, told a whole different story. It started to look like this wasn't just about growing apples. Instead, it seemed like a clever immigration scheme. The idea? If you invested in even a tiny plot, just a few saplings, you might qualify for Canadian residency for you and your family. The investors weren't after apples. They were after something much bigger. The permanent residency card, often called the Canadian Maple Leaf Card. For what seemed like a small investment, they thought they could get their money back quickly and move to North America with their loved ones. This scheme wasn't entirely new. It almost copied those buy land in America scams that shook China years ago, leaving millions of people empty-handed. On the immigration website, pictures of investors shaking hands with Canadian politicians acted as guarantees of a promising future. Many Indians eagerly jumped on the chance to invest in this orchard project. Whether they were rich or just dreamers looking for a better life, people sold everything they had, hoping their small investment in some faraway saplings would change their lives. But behind the shiny promises was a much darker reality. No matter how much money they poured in, the funds simply disappeared. Camelpreet, an experienced scammer, knew exactly how to turn their hopes into cash. Selling plots that were never meant for actual farming made him a fortune, while investors were left with shattered dreams. Camelpreet's scams didn't just target a few people. He managed to trick an entire community in India. He was so clever that he knew how to avoid getting caught. Even if his victims made it to Canada, he knew they had no chance of getting their money back. To squeeze every dollar out, he faked land sale contracts, selling the same plots of land to multiple buyers. He even took advantage of local kindness by asking for donations for a so-called Save the Environment project. Of course, he used the money for himself. Camelpreet acted like as long as he stayed sharp, he could keep harvesting crops from pockets around the world. After years of using apple orchards as bait to attract investors, Camelpreet started to see fewer and fewer profits. As the money dried up, he began searching for new ways to make cash. One of his job ads posted on his personal Facebook account quickly got a lot of attention. It said, "Amazing opportunity. We need 5,560 workers to pick fruit on beautiful Prince Edward Island. You don't need any experience. $15 per hour, 6 days a week, free housing, free food, and bonuses. If you do a good job, it's safe and you get benefits." It even said they would give free tours of the island during breaks. The ad said things like easy work and lots of money. So it became really popular with people who didn't have many skills or didn't speak much English. It seemed like an amazing opportunity. One of the people interested in the ad was Mr. Liu, a man from China. Mr. Liu and his daughter came to Canada in 2021, hoping for a better life. They thought Vancouver would be a great place for his autistic daughter to learn and grow. But the school they chose wouldn't let his daughter in. They said they didn't have the right teachers or support for her. She was put in a normal classroom, but after a few months, the school kicked her out. That's so unfair. Things got even worse when Mr. Liu found out that the visa the agency got them was only a tourist visa. This meant his daughter couldn't study or work legally in Canada. It's expensive to live in Vancouver, and they were running out of money fast. The Liu family was desperate, so when Mr. Liu saw the job ad, he was really interested in it. It was their last hope. Because of the pandemic, these jobs seemed like a great opportunity. The ad made it sound amazing. No experience required, good pay, and not many requirements. Even though the job was on a faraway island and only included free Indian food, Mr. Liu decided to try it. His goal was simple: work hard over the summer and save enough money so his daughter could go to a good school in September. But when Mr. Liu got to the consultant's office in Vancouver, he realized it wasn't so easy. The consultant, who had a strong Indian accent, told him, "This job isn't hard, but you need a work permit. Working without one is against the law." Mr. Liu was feeling down and almost left, but the consultant quickly made him another offer. "On Prince Edward Island, they need skilled workers," he said. "The immigration rules are pretty flexible. If you work for at least 6 months, you can apply for a green card. Your daughter can even come with you and have the same rights as citizens there." What started as a job search had now become a way to get residency. This gave Mr. Liu some hope, but he had been tricked before, so he was careful. He needed to think about this offer before making any decisions. The very next day, Camelpreet, the immigration consultant, called Mr. Liu. He said it was a rare opportunity and that there weren't many spots left. He said that families in India were eager to invest, and if Mr. Liu didn't decide quickly, someone else would get a spot. Mr. Liu was still unsure, so Camelpreet emailed him photos of the project, showing pictures of the orchard and saying that the company's partners, including important people on Prince Edward Island, really wanted it to succeed. Camelpreet made the deal even better by promising him a green card for only 30,000 Canadian dollars. He said that this was a special discount because he admired how hardworking Chinese people are. He said that people from India had to pay 50,000 Canadian dollars. After talking a few times, Kamalpreet convinced Mr. Liu that this was a good investment. For 30,000 Canadian dollars, he could get a better life for his family. Mr. Liu had bad experiences with other immigration consultants, so this felt like the right decision. But things didn't go as planned. It was even worse than before. Over the next few weeks, Kamalpreet kept asking for more money for things like processing fees, accommodation costs, and workers' insurance. Each fee cost thousands of dollars, and he had to pay in cash. Mr. Liu spent almost $10,000 more, but he didn't get any papers for his residency application or citizenship like Kamalpreet promised. He felt like something was wrong, but he felt trapped. The contract said that he couldn't get his money back if he broke the agreement. He was regretful and disappointed, but he had to keep going, hoping it would work out. Can you believe he kept asking for more money? Then Kamalpreet said the work visa was approved, but Mr. Liu needed to pay another 20,000 Canadian dollars to get it. Mr. Liu thought the fees were getting out of hand, so he watched carefully and secretly recorded the whole thing. He noticed the person receiving the money carefully checked each $100 bill and talked on the phone to a woman in Hindi over and over again. Finally, after all the problems and expenses, Mr. Liu had the visa. So Mr. Liu and his daughter went to Prince Edward Island. He had to pay for everything because there was no one to take care of his daughter in Vancouver. When they got to the orchard manager was confused. He said he hadn't hired anyone. The manager, Rod, was an apple grower with a lot of experience from Ottawa. He had worked for Canadian Nectar Products since 2014 and moved to Prince Edward Island in 2017 to manage the orchard project. Kamalpreet chose Rod to make the company look legitimate. After a lot of people quit or got fired, Canadian Nectar Products was basically a fake company. They needed someone like Rod to keep up the act. Kamalpreet fooled Rod with his professional appearance, expensive car, and promises of success. So Rod agreed to manage the orchard and moved his family to the island. Thanks to Rod's hard work, the orchard was doing a little better and the trees looked healthier, but they weren't growing enough apples. So when Mr. Liu showed up looking for work, Rod was confused. And it wasn't even harvest season yet. There were only a few apples on the trees and they didn't need any more workers. Mr. Liu and his daughter had traveled a long way and Rod didn't know what to do. He tried to call Canadian Nectar Products, but no one answered. He let Mr. Liu and his daughter stay in a small house near the orchard to give himself some time to figure out what to do. What was going on? The next day, more people showed up looking for work, just like Mr. Liu. Over the next few days, more and more people arrived, mostly immigrants from China, India, and Mexico. They were desperate for work and really begging him for help. Rod was just an orchard manager and he didn't know what to do. Meanwhile, Kamalpreet had disappeared and couldn't be reached. Rod was alone and didn't know how to deal with the chaos. Rod didn't know what to do, so he contacted community organizations on the island to ask for help. He found out that these workers had a special work permit that meant they could only work for Canadian Nectar Products. It would be illegal for anyone else to hire them. And get this, Canadian Nectar Products was supposed to give them a place to live, pay for their living expenses, make sure they had good working conditions and follow all the labor laws in Canada. Importantly, the company was supposed to pay for their visas, not the workers. This meant that Mr. Liu had paid 30,000 Canadian dollars for a visa that Canadian Nectar Products should have paid for. Some of the other workers had paid even more, up to 50,000 Canadian dollars. It was clear that Kamalpreet's company had committed fraud and now these workers could lose all their money. Someone from a charity told the workers they should sue Canadian Nectar Products to get their money back. When Kamalpreet heard about the trouble, he showed up and said it was all a misunderstanding because of some miscommunication. He promised to find everyone a place to live and said they would start working in the orchard the next week. But then he threatened them. He said that if they sued him, he would take away their work visas and they would be sent back to their countries. Everyone, including Mr. Liu, was scared of his threat and felt like they had to do what he said. Kamalpreet took them to an old and gross warehouse that he called the employee dormitory. Can you believe he put them in that terrible warehouse? It was really difficult for Mr. Liu and the others to live in those terrible conditions, especially for those with children. The food was also terrible. There wasn't much vegetarian food, which was especially difficult for the Hindu workers from India. They didn't have enough to eat and were getting weak. Rod, the orchard manager, felt bad for them and asked for help from local charities to make things better. Although the food and housing situation was fixed for now, the work itself was still a big problem. Kamalpreet knew there wasn't any real work, but he made the workers come to the orchard and just sit around for 8 hours a day. He did this to trick immigration officials and so he wouldn't get caught for not giving them jobs. Mr. Liu was worried about his daughter, so he had to bring her to the orchard every day, even in the hot weather with all the bugs. They got food, but it was boring and unhealthy, which made things hard for his family. Mr. Liu's dream of living in Canada was becoming a nightmare, but that wasn't all. Kamalpreet found a new way to get money from the workers. He charged them a salary fee. Can you imagine having to pay to work? Unbelievably, the company didn't pay them. They actually charged them. Kamalpreet said this money would be put in the accounting system and then given back to them as a subsidy. He was just creating fake records to fool the government. And even worse, some workers found out that the promise of applying for a green card after 6 months was a complete lie. Kamalpreet had been doing this for years, tricking hundreds of people with lies. When he saw how angry the workers were, Kamalpreet showed his true colors. He said it wasn't his fault and that he only promised them work visas, not jobs or residency. He said that he hadn't broken any laws and that Canada's immigration rules weren't very strict. He even fired Rod, the orchard manager who was trying to help the workers. That was a really mean thing to do, and it showed he didn't care about them at all. In 2022, after getting a complaint from Mr. Liu, Canadian authorities investigated Canadian nectar products. They found out that the company had committed fraud and exploited workers. The video that Mr. Liu secretly recorded, which showed Kamalpreet demanding $20,000 Syed for a work visa, was an important piece of evidence. This was a violation of immigration law. 31 workers, including Mr. Liu, got their money back and were given open work permits for 1 year so they could work anywhere in Canada. Mr. Liu and his daughter finally left Prince Edward Island, which was full of bad memories, and started a new life in Toronto. But he never got his 30,000 Canadian dollars back. This terrible experience taught them a valuable lesson. Be careful of job promises overseas and never trust immigration consultants you can't trust. After the scandal broke, people started asking about whether the government was protecting Canadian nectar products and letting the scam go on for so long. Ryan McRae worked with migrant workers at a charity on Prince Edward Island. He publicly criticized Canadian nectar products as scam, but he was even angrier about the government not doing anything to stop scams like this. He said the visa system wasn't strict enough, which lets companies take advantage of foreign workers. Why did the government let this happen? A CBC report said that between 2017 and 2021, Canadian nectar products got permits to hire over 200 foreign workers. It was so easy and fast to get these permits. Sometimes it only took a few minutes. This seems suspicious. For an apple orchard that size, it didn't make sense that the company could pay so many workers so much money. People were saying that Canadian nectar products had gotten support from government officials, which made people even more suspicious of a cover-up. They thought the government was okay with the company's illegal activities. Both former Deputy Prime Minister Sheila Copps and Senator Gurmont Gruel strongly denied being involved. Copps said she sold her shares in the company in 2017 and didn't know about anything illegal that happened after that. Gruel said he lived in Vancouver and didn't know anything about the illegal things happening on Prince Edward Island. He said he was only a distant relative of the company owner and was asked to be a spokesperson. He said he didn't make any money from it. In the end, Kamalpreet was blamed for everything. Even though they took away his license, he didn't seem sorry at all. He fought really hard against paying the victims back and even threatened to sue them to protect himself. Why didn't he just apologize? Unbelievably, after losing his license, Kamalpreet quickly started a new business. He said he was a social media expert and promised to help people get rich really fast. Can you believe he started a new scam? And even worse, Canadian nectar products was still run by Kamalpreet and was still tricking foreign workers. He clearly wasn't going to stop. Meanwhile, AJ, the former CEO of Canadian nectar products, moved to New Brunswick and started scamming people again. He used the same orchard investment scheme and tricked people, including a man. The man believed AJ's promises and invested all his money, 2 million Canadian dollars, in a big apple orchard. But after AJ got the money, he disappeared, and the man was left with a dying orchard and a lot of debt. This made people really angry and made them question how investments are regulated. Why didn't anyone stop him? And in an unlucky turn of events, Rod, the orchard manager who tried to help the workers, was now in a difficult situation himself. After Canadian Nectar Products fired him and didn't pay him, his family broke up and he was struggling. He joined the other workers in their fight for justice. His story is a reminder that doing the right thing doesn't always mean things will work out for you. Unlike Rod, who had some bad luck, things turned out differently for the orchard owner. Refusing to work with Canadian Nectar Products saved him from losing a lot of money. He kept taking care of his orchard and he kept growing apples and making enough money to support his family. Their different stories show the difference between good and evil, justice and injustice. Sometimes bad things happen to good people and sometimes bad people get away with doing bad things. But in the end, the truth usually comes out and good people usually get what they deserve. This story teaches us an important lesson. There are no easy ways to achieve your goals. There are always risks with immigration and investments. We need to be careful, do our research and find trustworthy partners so we don't get scammed. Story 3. You won't believe that the woman you see on screen was once called the most evil woman in human history. As an abbess, Marina Selekiotis deceived everyone around her for decades, amassing wealth and power through manipulation. By the end of her career, Marina was arrested and people began referring to her as the serial killer nun. Marina Selekiotis was born in 1883 in Greece to a poor family. Without many resources, she worked on the family farm to help her parents make ends meet. Despite her humble beginnings, Marina always dreamed of wealth and power. Some reports suggest that Marina also worked in a factory to support her daily expenses. It's not hard to imagine what Marina's life looked like before she became a nun. She would wake up at dawn, have a simple breakfast, or sometimes none at all depending on how much food was available on the farm, and head out to work. For a teenage girl, landing a factory job might have felt like a stroke of luck, but the job offered little financial stability or opportunity for upward mobility. That's when Marina chose the only path she believed could make her dreams come true. She decided to become a nun and joined the Old Calendarist Church. At 23 years old, Marina found herself at a turning point. Around this time, Matthew Karpathakos was the head monk at the church. During a pivotal meeting, Matthew expressed his struggle to align with the principles of the Old Calendarist Church and decided to establish a new monastery. As luck would have it, Marina was one of the first people to join his group, which became known as the New Calendarist Church. She officially took on the name Marina Selekiotou. Little did anyone know that the woman with such a pure-sounding name would soon wreak havoc on the lives of those who followed and trusted the church. Of course, no one could have foreseen the infamous legacy this new church would gain under Marina's leadership. But even in the early days, ominous signs of trouble began to surface. Marina quickly rose through the ranks of the church, eventually becoming a close confidant of Archbishop Matthew. When tensions arose between Matthew and the Old Calendarist Church, Marina stood by his side. Together, they laid the foundation for the Panagia Pevkovanogia Triza Monastery, known as the Monastery of the Virgin Mary in 1927. The monastery was located between the town of Karatia and the rural village of Kaki Thalassa. For 2 years, Matthew had been planning to establish this monastery, and Marina proved instrumental in acquiring the land they needed. She secured 7 acres of land, and by the end of the year, purchased 2 more plots. No one knew how Marina managed to amass such vast properties. Greek author Nina Koulitakis, after reviewing the long history of Matthew's writings about the monastery, concluded that there was no legal explanation for how the nuns were able to afford these sprawling estates. Marina's methods were shrouded in mystery, leaving many unanswered questions. An official announcement by Matthew during the monastery's inauguration declared that it was established to honor the birth of the Virgin Mary. However, the real reason behind its creation was to gather donations for the Old Calendarist movement. Both Marina and Matthew skillfully concealed their true intentions, presenting themselves as the faces of honesty, integrity, and faith to those who naively believed in them. Faith became the driving force behind their growing influence. The unwavering support of their devoted followers enabled the calendarist movement to thrive. Things might not have turned so sinister if Marina had shared the same genuine faith as her supporters. Instead, she exploited both violence and religion to extort money, controlling her followers' fates and using their funds to construct the monastery. This was no easy feat, especially with their limited finances. The fact that Marina and Matthew managed to build an entire monastery from the ground up seemed almost miraculous. But how did they do it? The answer lies in a mysterious source of funding, a dark truth that would soon come to light. The Virgin Monastery in Pine was promoted as a tuberculosis treatment center, known as the Tuberculosis Monastery. Perched high atop a mountain, it attracted those desperate for hope, as there was no cure for tuberculosis at the time. Many saw the monastery as a safe haven and flocked there in droves, praying for recovery. Marina welcomed them with open arms, despite the monastery having no proper medical facilities. Her followers were excited to be part of this new religious sect. However, Marina packed multiple patients into small rooms and forbade any doctors from seeing them, unless it was to sign their death certificates. During Marina's youth, while she enjoyed the golden era of the new calendarist church, Archbishop Matthew was already 66 years old. She closely observed how he managed the monastery's operations, and even took on some responsibilities when Matthew was briefly imprisoned. Upon his return, Matthew resumed his spiritual journey as a high-rule monk, devoting himself to extreme acts of penance. He fasted for 40 consecutive days, wrapped heavy metal chains around his waist, and isolated himself to draw closer to God. Little did Matthew know that the sweet and gentle facade Marina presented hid the iron hand of a tyrant ruling over his monastery. While Matthew lay bedridden, Archbishop Chrysostomus of Florina visited him. With a sense of hope, Chrysostomus sought to bury the hatchet and end the division within the calendarist church. But before Matthew could utter a word, Marina barged into the room with all the nuns in tow and demanded that Chrysostomus leave immediately. We can only speculate how efforts to mend the schism might have unfolded, and what impact they could have had on the future of the church. Unfortunately, Marina extinguished any chance of reconciliation. By 1939, Archbishop Matthew's health had begun to deteriorate, leaving Marina fully in charge of the monastery. At this point, Matthew's life was a mere shadow of his former self. He relied on Marina to make key decisions, and soon he handed over complete control to her. After 11 years of waiting, Marina was finally awarded the title Mother Marina of Karathea. Marina's lifelong ambition for absolute control had finally been fulfilled. Now, she was officially the abbess of the Panagia Pefkovinogia Triza Monastery. She wore the traditional Greek Orthodox clerical attire, complete with a black veil draped over her forehead and eyebrows, garb reserved only for the highest-ranking Eastern Orthodox nuns. Marina had one clear goal: to amass as much wealth as possible and stop at nothing to achieve it. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when Marina's descent into murderous fury began. What's certain is that her turn toward extreme ascetic practices started shortly after becoming abbess. With her commanding personality, she built a formidable force under her control. She was relentless in her efforts to accumulate wealth for her monastery, hoarding as much as she could. As word of her activities spread, the media gave her a fitting nickname, Mother Rasputin. Charity is often seen as the ultimate act of humanity. But what happens when the money behind it is stained with the crimes of someone like Marina? Her crimes went far beyond the initial suspicions of illegal imports for which she had first been convicted. Marina exploited desperate tuberculosis patients, offering them false hope of recovery. Instead, they died in pain, suffering, and isolation. Her reign of terror didn't stop there. Marina was implicated in hundreds of murders. She swindled millions of dollars by preying on wealthy families, promising salvation for their loved ones. If they refused, she had them tied up in her monastery's basement, torturing them until they complied. Those who continued to resist were left to starve to death. No one knows the exact number of victims who suffered under the abbess rule. However, Greek police estimate that she was responsible for at least 27 murders. Mr. and Mrs. Baca were devoted followers of the Calandras Church. They admired Archbishop Matthew's bravery in the work of his monastery. Mrs. Baca's theological mentor at the church introduced her to Marina, unaware of the horrors hiding behind the guise of the monastery's abbess. Entrusting everything to her faith, Mrs. Baca mortgaged all her possessions and handed the proceeds over to the church. But when she finally realized Marina's true nature, a ruthless and evil manipulator, she tried to escape with her 2 children. Marina, unwilling to lose such a lucrative donation, had Mrs. Baca locked in a cell. The room she was forced into was one where tuberculosis patients had died, a bleak and haunting place. Mrs. Baca cried out for help, but her pleas went unheard. The monastery, perched high on a remote mountain, was like a fortress, a perfect dungeon for Marina's sinister plans. The imprisoned woman was given only scraps of food, barely enough to survive. By the time Marina decided to release Mrs. Baca, she was little more than a lifeless shell. Marina offered no aid. Instead, she allowed Mrs. Baca's body to decay in the same cell where she had perished. As for Mr. Baca, he was kept isolated until he too fell gravely ill. He eventually died, alone and in agony, another victim of Marina's merciless rule. Imagine visiting a monastery seeking spiritual enlightenment, only to leave with nothing but an empty bank account. Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened to Mr. and Mrs. Paniatopoulou. Hoping to escape the struggles of their lives, they turned to Marina for guidance. She promised them freedom from all their sins if they joined her. Instead, Marina took them hostage, starving them until they signed over all their property in her name. But Marina wasn't satisfied with just taking their wealth. She decided it would be best to ensure the Paniatopoulos left this world for good. In the early 1900s, tuberculosis was a death sentence. At that time, doctors could only ease the suffering of patients, as no cure had been discovered yet. Mrs. Makalaku, upon being diagnosed with tuberculosis, was desperate for hope. She heard about the Virgin Mary Monastery and its supposed ability to treat the disease. Overjoyed at the possibility of a cure, she traveled to the monastery expecting spiritual healing. But what awaited her was a nightmare. The nuns locked her in a cell and abandoned her there. She received no medication and was given only a few small meals. As her body weakened, Mrs. Makalaku realized she was just another victim under Marina's cruel rule. Alone and in agony, with no loved ones by her side, Mrs. Makalaku passed away, her life cut short by the merciless treatment she endured. Not everyone living under Marina's rule was content with how she ran things. Sister Theodote, for one, dared to speak out against the cruel methods of the abbess. But Marina was not someone who tolerated dissent. She accused Theodote of misconduct and ordered the other nuns to beat her as punishment. With no choice but to follow orders, the nuns carried out brutal attack, striking Theodote so severely that she suffered internal bleeding and died on the spot. This was the price of disagreeing with the tyrannical leader. Marina's wrath awaited anyone who stood against her. Maria, another nun, also spoke out against Marina and faced similar brutality. She was savagely beaten and left so badly injured that when she was finally taken to the hospital, she was unrecognizable. Her internal organs were severely damaged and she was hemorrhaging badly. Despite the doctor's best efforts, there was no treatment capable of undoing the savagery Maria endured. She passed away, finding freedom at last from the clutches of Marina and the oppressive Calandaros church. The church denied any connection between Marina and the murders. However, numerous witness testimonies revealed a chilling pattern. Marina lured innocent people to her monastery with promises of salvation. In reality, they were tied up in the basement and forced to sign over their possessions and property to her name. Marina was eventually tried for 7 murders, but authorities estimated she had caused the deaths of at least 27 people through starvation. Her crimes included brutal beatings and neglect, all carried out under the religious authority. If Marina had been an ordinary woman, perhaps her reign of terror might have ended there. But unfortunately, Marina was far from ordinary. Even as accusations mounted, Marina continued sending monks across Greece to target wealthy widows and well-off families. These monks preyed on innocent, devout individuals, convincing them to donate to the monastery, only for Marina to pocket their contributions. Her actions blurred the line between faith and greed, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. One day, the police received an anonymous tip. An elderly woman had donated her entire estate to the monastery. Her daughter, convinced that her mother would never willingly give away such a large sum, suspected coercion. However, this accusation alone wasn't enough to arrest Marina. Determined to uncover the truth, the police began investigating Marina's mysterious wealth. They discovered that the abbess was involved in smuggling olive oil and other spices. Yet, allegations of illegal imports were insufficient to arrest a high-ranking figure like Marina. The case took a darker turn when Eugenia Margheriti came forward. Eugenia alleged that she had been isolated and imprisoned by the abbess, who tortured her into handing over assets worth $118 million. In 1949, Christos Spiritus approached the Greek police with a desperate plea. He was searching for his missing daughter. The investigation led authorities straight back to the monastery. Christo claimed that a nun named Marina had convinced him to donate $10,000 to the monastery in exchange for divine blessings. According to an AP report, Christo was eventually reunited with his 18-year-old daughter, shedding light on yet another of Marina's heinous schemes. The police continued investigating the allegations against Marina Salekiatou. They uncovered horrifying practices at the monastery, including the enforcement of ascetic rituals and the outright refusal to allow doctors to treat tuberculosis patients. Nearly 150 individuals died without receiving medical care during their time at the monastery. As the investigation unfolded, more survivors came forward to share their harrowing experiences. They revealed how Marina would intimidate them, often staring them down until they broke under the pressure and were forced to sign over their assets to her name. According to Reuters, when Marina was arrested, she owned nearly 300 houses and farms under her name. Additionally, during her perilous reign as Mother Rasputin, she amassed a fortune in gold and jewelry worth thousands of pounds, further cementing her legacy as one of the most ruthless figures in modern religious history. On the night of December 4, 1950, while Marina slept soundly in her lavish quarters, the police launched a raid on the monastery. A total of 85 officers searched the premises. Anticipating Marina's involvement in heinous crimes, they brought along a deputy prosecutor, a judge, and an investigator to oversee the operation. The search lasted through the night and into the next day. During the raid, the police rescued 36 children. They had to physically pull the children from the grip of the nuns. Additionally, they found several elderly women, malnourished, sick, and half-naked, tied up in the basement. It was uncertain if authorities could convict Marina on charges of fraud and embezzlement. As a result, they began her trial with the less serious accusations of illegally importing olive oil and tires. Meanwhile, the Calandrus church authorities were preparing to strip Marina of her untouchable status, signaling an end to her reign of terror. In January 1951, the Archbishop of Athens and the municipal court of Florina failed to reconcile their differences. With the ancient church dismantled, Marina could no longer use religion as a shield for her appalling crimes. This gave the prosecutor free rein to pursue the ruthless nun, and he spared no detail in exposing her decade-long reign of terror. Marina faced charges that included murder, fraud, forgery, extortion, and torture. Marina Salekiatou, however, continued to portray herself as a devout nun. During the trial, she wore an Orthodox icon to honor the late Matthew, whom she elevated to sainthood as Saint Matthew the New Confessor. Marina denied all accusations, dismissing them as satanic fabrications. It's possible that Marina convinced herself that her actions were justified in the name of religion. In the courtroom, she stood as a cold, unfeeling figure, whose sole purpose had been to satisfy her insatiable greed. Marina knew she had no real defense, even as she attempted to exploit legal loopholes. Her defense lawyer argued that individuals who joined the monastery willingly pledged to transfer all their assets to the institution. He claimed the properties were under Marina's name simply because the monastery lacked legal standing to hold them itself. Marina's heinous crimes resulted in 3 separate trials. The first trial took place in 1951 and 1952. The second followed in 1953, and the third and final trial concluded just months before her death. Marina received a 26-month sentence after the first trial, 10 years after the second, and an additional 4 months following the last. Her conviction in 1951 sent shockwaves through the White Matthew followers across Greece. These devout supporters of Marina staged protests, demanding her release from the grip of the legal system. They called for Marina's freedom and her return to what they believed was her rightful place. The situation escalated so dramatically that the police had to provide security for the archbishop, fearing he might be kidnapped as leverage to force Marina's release. Marina Salikiatou spent her final days imprisoned in Avarov prison on Athens Avenue. Much like her victims, she lived out her last moments in isolation, though she didn't meet the same fate as them. While sentenced to 14 years, Marina only served 1 year before falling seriously ill. She was transferred to a hospital where she passed away at the age of 71. At the height of her power, Marina commanded a following of over 400 people. Nearly 500 individuals had willed their assets to her monastery, naming Marina as their beneficiary. Many of them perished within the monastery walls, succumbing to illness, starvation, or torture. Despite this dark legacy, the Matthew nuns continued to pray for Saint Marina's intercession, believing her to be a paragon of purity and morality. When questioned about the hundreds of deaths in the monastery, the nuns claimed that the people who joined the church were already elderly. They insisted that their deaths were part of God's will, not negligence or wrongdoing by Marina. That concludes the story of Marina Salikiatou. Story 4. One of the biggest cases in the Western world in recent years is the Jeffrey Epstein case. When he died suddenly in prison, it seemed like the end of it, but there are still unanswered questions about his victims and the powerful people involved in his crimes. These questions continue to be important. The controversy involved important people in business and politics all over the world, even former U.S. presidents and members of the British royal family. When Epstein died mysteriously in August 2019, the scandal got even bigger and shocked everyone in American politics and business. Before people found out about his terrible crimes, Epstein was very powerful and influential, and a lot of people admired him. He was like the character Gatsby from the book. Even though he came from a normal background, Jeffrey Epstein made a ton of money. He had a lot of expensive properties all over the world, like a $20 million mansion in Palm Beach, Florida, a huge townhouse in Manhattan, a fancy apartment in Paris, a private island in the Caribbean, and a big ranch in New Mexico. He even owned a private airport in Palm Beach, where he kept a bunch of expensive planes, including a Boeing 727. But behind this show of wealth, Epstein was a very private and mysterious guy. There wasn't much information about his personal life or what he did for work. Even today, everyone is interested in how he became so successful so quickly. Jeffrey Epstein was born in New York in 1953. He was a smart kid and did well in school at first, but things went up and down. He failed 2 classes, which was unexpected. Then he got into Cooper Union, a fancy school, but quit after 2 years. Strangely, even though he didn't seem to finish high school, he got a job as a teacher at the Dalton School, another fancy private high school. It's a real mystery how he got that job. In 1976, Epstein started working at Bear Stearns, a well-known investment bank on Wall Street. In just 4 years, he moved up in the company and got an important position. But then he was suddenly fired when they found out about his dishonest and unprofessional behavior. He was caught lying about his education and acting in a way that wasn't okay for an investment banker. In 1982, Epstein started his own financial management company, J. Epstein and Company. He only worked with super-rich people who had billions of dollars. But around the same time, he got involved in a complicated Ponzi scheme that stole a huge amount of money, for $160 million from hundreds of thousands of investors. They arrested other people involved in the scheme, but Epstein didn't get in trouble. How did he get away with it? In 1988, Epstein started Epstein Investments and quickly became friends with a lot of people with money on Wall Street. He also started hanging out with powerful people in politics, business, and fashion, including Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Bill Gates, and Leslie Wexner, the rich guy who owned Victoria's Secret. One powerful person even said good things about him in public, describing him as a great guy who liked beautiful women, younger ones just like him. His friendship with Leslie Wexner is really interesting. Wexner let Epstein manage a lot of his money, making people wonder about the relationship and why Wexner would do that. Some people thought Epstein took advantage of Wexner to take his money. People even said that they had a special sexual relationship. Why was he so interested in making friends with these powerful people? When people found out about his terrible crimes, they started to think that these powerful people might have known about or even helped with his illegal activities. Journalist Vicky Ward was the first person who tried to find out the truth about him. In 2003, she was writing an article about Epstein for Vanity Fair magazine. She thought she was going to write a story about a successful businessman, but then she got a phone call that changed everything. It was a creepy phone call from someone she didn't know. The caller told her some terrible things about Epstein. At first, Vicky's article was supposed to be about Epstein's luxurious lifestyle and incredible success. But that strange phone call totally changed her mind. The young woman on the other end bravely described the horrifying things he did to her. She said Epstein regularly used his assistant, Sarah Kellen, to find young girls for his sick desires. With his charm and seemingly endless money, Epstein easily tricked these vulnerable young women into coming to his mansions with the promise of high-paying massage jobs. But hiding beneath his charming and generous facade was a sexual predator, ready to take advantage of and abuse them. Most of Epstein's victims, especially the young girls, came from poor families or had tough backgrounds. When they were just 14 or 15 years old, they were still innocent and vulnerable. He promised them a better life, a way out of poverty, and that made it easy for him to take advantage of them. Epstein used his wealth to trick and manipulate them. After he abused them, many of the girls felt scared and alone and couldn't tell anyone. They were worried that if they told people what happened, they would be judged or even blamed. What's even more horrifying is that Epstein actually told these girls to bring him their friends and promised to give them money if they did. These girls, who were already victims of his abuse, would convince their friends to come by promising them easy money. They would say things like, "You can make $200 for a 45-minute massage for a rich guy after school." Many of these girls were desperate for money, so they couldn't resist the offer. They had no idea that by stepping into Epstein's mansion, they were falling into a trap. Epstein was truly evil. He carefully built a pyramid scheme where he was at the top, taking advantage of everyone below him. He had help from his assistant, Sarah Kellen, a model named Nadia Marcinkova, and his ex-girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell was born into a wealthy Jewish family. Her father, Robert Maxwell, was a powerful media guy in Britain. She had a privileged life with everything she could ever want. But things changed in 1991 when her father died in a mysterious way on his yacht. After that, the Maxwell family's finances started to fall apart. But during this difficult time, Ghislaine stayed in the spotlight. She was known for being smart and beautiful, and she had connections to a lot of important people. She easily became part of the world of rich and famous people in America. But after meeting Jeffrey Epstein, her life took a dark turn. Ghislaine Maxwell became more than a friend to Epstein. She became his partner in crime. She was deeply involved in his operation, helping him find and groom young girls. Together, they traveled to many different countries, even places like South America and Eastern Europe. They were looking for vulnerable young girls to lure into their web of abuse. Ghislaine even trained these girls to satisfy Epstein's sick desires. She went from being a respected socialite to a recruiter and supplier of young girls for Epstein. In 1994, Epstein was giving money to this fancy art school called Interlaken. He used this chance to find and trick young girls who were underage into coming to parties. He pretended to be a former student. In 1997, he did the same thing again. This time, Epstein used his friendship with Leslie Wexner and pretended to be someone who finds new models for Victoria's Secret. Epstein and his friends found and recruited young women, both models and regular girls, and used them in a terrible system of abuse. Epstein didn't just keep his victims to himself. He shared them with other powerful men. His fancy mansion became a place for crazy parties, and they treated the girls like they were things to be bought and sold. In this terrible system, the girls were the real victims. They were used and thrown away, exploited and discarded with ruthless indifference. Vicky was completely shocked when she found out the terrible truth about Epstein. She knew she had a really important story, but it also meant facing huge risks. Can you imagine the pressure she was under? When she started writing the article, she started getting threatening calls from people she didn't know. They said they knew everything about her. Her doctor, the hospital where she gave birth. If she didn't do what they wanted, she and her family would be in big trouble. And then her editor told her to take out important details about the victims. He wanted to make Epstein look good. Vicky realized she was up against a powerful group that would do anything to protect Epstein and his friends from the truth. Epstein turned his private island in the Caribbean into a place where his rich and famous friends could do bad things. It was far away from everyone and had tight security. If anyone tried to go where they weren't allowed, they were kicked out right away. To bring his special guests to his paradise, Epstein owned a private Boeing 727, which was nicknamed the Lowly Express. The luxurious interior of the plane was redesigned with multiple bedrooms and private living areas, basically like Sex in the Sky. When they got to the island, Epstein's guests could have wild parties in the huge villa. And if they wanted privacy, they could stay in private cabins. Every room had really nice things, as good as a 5-star hotel. And there were security cameras everywhere so they could see what everyone was doing. Everyone knew why he was doing that. Once you did bad things there, you were all in this together. No one could escape. Actually, this had been happening for a very long time. One reason Epstein escaped justice was because of a long list of powerful people who were believed to have visited his private island. There were rumors that famous people, like former U.S. President Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew of the United Kingdom, actor Kevin Spacey, and attorney Alan Dershowitz, had all been on his private jet. In September 2002, Bill Clinton took a flight together with Jeffrey Epstein on the Lolita Express, traveling from New York to Africa. When the plane made a quick stop to refuel at a small airport in Portugal, a photograph was taken, capturing the moment when Shantae Davies, Epstein's personal masseuse, was seen giving Clinton a massage. This image quickly caused a media storm. Although Davies later explained she was just doing her job and had no personal relationship with Clinton, the photo taken on Epstein's notorious plane, known for its questionable activities, still caused a stir in public opinion. According to flight logs, Clinton had traveled on the Lolita Express at least 26 times between 2001 and 2003. During the search of Epstein's home after his arrest, a strange find caught a lot of attention. A painting showing the former president in a dress. At first it might have looked like a weird joke, but having it in Epstein's house raised a lot of questions. Even weirder was that the blue dress in the painting looked a lot like one Hillary Clinton wore at a public event. Seeing such a personal artwork in Epstein's home only made people wonder about the unusual relationship between these two powerful men. In October 2019, the New York Times published an eye-opening article describing the connection between billionaire Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. The article revealed that Gates had been to Epstein's fancy townhouse in Manhattan at least 3 times, including once late at night. In response to the news, Gates denied being close to Epstein and insisted they had no business dealings. However, his late-night visit made a lot of people wonder, were these secret meetings just social gatherings, or did they hide other motives? Virginia Roberts was one of the victims caught up in Epstein's twisted Lolita Island scheme. Epstein first targeted Virginia in 1999. While working as a waitress at a hotel in Florida, 16-year-old Virginia bumped into Ghislaine Maxwell, a wealthy, sophisticated woman. Right from the start, Ghislaine was taken by Virginia's beauty. She offered to connect Virginia with a friend needing a personal massage therapist, promising her professional training and a well-paying job. Trusting her, Virginia accepted without a second thought. It turns out that the friend Ghislaine mentioned was actually Jeffrey Epstein, who used the young girl to fulfill his needs. When Virginia was taken to Epstein's place, he was lying there without any clothes on the massage table. At first, Virginia thought it was just part of the job and kept going without thinking twice. That was until Epstein turned around and started making moves on her. To her shock, Ghislaine, Epstein's girlfriend at the time, even joined in. This was just the beginning of what Virginia was about to go through. In 2008, under increasing public pressure, Epstein pleaded guilty to soliciting prostitution. As part of a deal with the prosecutors, he got only an 18-month prison sentence that let him work outside, an unbelievably light sentence considering his terrible crimes. The terms allowed Epstein to come and go from jail as he pleased, even letting him work outside for up to 16 hours a day. This was just a slap on the wrist, and it didn't do anything to stop him, and his victims got no justice. After serving his sentence, Epstein went back to his luxurious lifestyle, throwing lavish parties on his private island where he invited the wealthy and powerful to take part in his debauchery. But you can't escape justice forever. Those who do bad things will eventually get what they deserve. The #MeToo movement, started by actress Alyssa Milano in 2017, inspired millions of women to share their stories of assault. This movement, along with more and more allegations against Jeffrey Epstein, made people all over the world furious. Finally, in 2019, public pressure pushed authorities to reopen the investigation into Epstein. When police searched his estate, they found thousands of photos and videos and other proof of his crimes involving underage girls. Epstein was arrested and detained, but the story didn't end there. What happened next outraged people everywhere. After his arrest on July 6, 2019, they put Jeffrey Epstein in a federal prison. Just 2 weeks later, on July 23rd, he tried to kill himself for the first time and was taken to the hospital right away. After this, they put him in a cell by himself and watched him closely to make sure he didn't try it again. But just 6 days later, they weren't watching him as closely anymore, and on August 10th, Epstein was found dead in his cell. Apparently, he had hanged himself with a rope he made from his bedsheets. Was it really suicide, though? Did someone want him dead? His death raised a lot of eyebrows, especially because he was facing serious charges for pedophilia and procure. People were even more shocked by his death than by his arrest. Epstein's death immediately became a huge topic of speculation and debate. Was it a genuine suicide or was it a well-planned murder? These suspicions only grew when crucial evidence started to vanish. Surveillance footage of Epstein's first attempt somehow got deleted, and the monitoring system in the prison where he died had malfunctions. Come on, what are the chances? These coincidences seemed like something out of a movie, where important evidence conveniently vanished at critical moments. According to reliable sources, Jeffrey Epstein had once revealed to those around him that there were individuals who wanted him to disappear forever. This has only fueled suspicions surrounding the mysterious circumstances of the billionaire's death. A report from BNL News stated that the 2 guards responsible for monitoring Epstein on the night of the incident were instructed to leave their posts before 3 a.m. to carry out hallway maintenance. This coincidence has further raised doubts among many. During a search of Epstein's residence, police found a black book with contact info for many well-known politicians, most of whom were Democrats. Just a day before Epstein's death, a New York court released 2,000 documents related to the case, including testimonies that showed Epstein's connections with powerful people. Interestingly, the first autopsy report showed several broken bones in Epstein's neck, including the hyoid bone, often seen in strangulation victims. However, the official cause of death was ruled as suicide, a decision that raised a lot of questions among the public. Chief Medical Examiner Barbara Sampson expressed doubts about this conclusion in a sad twist of events. Just 5 days after taking on the Epstein case, Judge Esther Salas was targeted in a shooting at her house. On July 19, 2020, while working in her basement, she heard shots upstairs. When she went to check, she found her husband and son severely wounded. Though she was incredibly lucky to come out unharmed, she tragically lost her 20-year-old son. The shooter was later identified as Roy Den Hollander, an extremist attorney with anti-feminist views. Disguised as a delivery person, Hollander got access to Judge Salas' home and made the attack happen. Before this, he had openly shown hatred toward female judges, especially those of Latin descent like Salas. Hollander's body was found in his car the day after the shooting, and he was believed to have ended his own life on a whim. It became obvious that several people connected to the Epstein case died under strange circumstances. The case turned out to be way more complicated than people first thought. Epstein's 2019 arrest, after years of shady activity, raised a lot of questions. Some thought his arrest was done to influence the American elections. Epstein's black book showed he had close ties with many powerful people, including politicians, causing a political crisis. After the tragic incident with Judge Salas, many thought there was a whole network of power and money hiding behind the Epstein case, one that's hard to fully understand. It's heartbreaking to see innocent young girls become victims of such dark schemes. Ghislaine Maxwell, who was once known as Jeffrey Epstein's right hand, was arrested on July 2nd. Her arrest was a key moment in the investigation of one of the most shocking cases in history. Throughout the investigation and trial, in December 2021, Maxwell was found guilty of trafficking underage girls and other charges related to Epstein's crimes. In June 2022, she was given a 20-year sentence in a federal prison in New York City. So far, the names of the powerful political figures in this case are still a mystery. Story 5. Bill Clinton, you founded this company 12 years ago, right? Woman, yes, that's right. Bill Clinton, tell him how old you were then. Woman, I was 19. In this short clip, you can see a famous person talking with Jack Ma and former President Bill Clinton. That's Elizabeth Holmes, who became really famous in the tech world. A lot of people might know Elizabeth Holmes because she was called the female Steve Jobs. But that wasn't completely true, because if she wasn't a criminal, she wouldn't be on our channel today. When she was 19, Elizabeth Holmes started a biotech company and wanted to change the medical industry. People called her product an amazing invention, and the company quickly became really successful. The most successful time in her career was in 2014, when Holmes, at just 30 years old, was on the cover of Forbes magazine. They called her one of the most powerful people in the world. That video clip you saw was recorded that same year. However, just a year later, at 31, the spotlight faded. Holmes fell from grace as her company was exposed as having no real value. The entrepreneur, once called the female Steve Jobs, was now labeled the world's most disappointing leader. A series of scandals unfolded, from the company's bankruptcy to allegations of fraud, leaving Holmes facing the threat of prison time as she entered her late 30s. All this tragedy stemmed from a dream called One Drop of Blood, a world of wonders. So what really happened? Elizabeth Holmes was born on February 3, 1984, in Washington, D.C. Her mom worked in Congress and her dad worked for a big energy company called Enron. He also worked for places like the Environmental Protection Agency and the Bureau of Science and Technology Development. When she was young, Holmes looked up to her father and dreamed of inventing something new. Her family had an interesting history. Her great-great-grandfather, Charles Louis Fleischmann, was one of the founders of the famous Fleischmann Yeast Company. This yeast company made her family really rich. Holmes' parents always talked about their family history to inspire her. They believed that Holmes could be really successful too. Before getting into biotechnology, Holmes was really interested in programming. She said that in high school, she made her first money by selling computer programs to university students in China. To do this, she started learning Chinese when she was young, with the help of a tutor that her parents found for her. She even took a Chinese class at Stanford University during summer vacation. In 2002, Holmes started at Stanford University to study chemical engineering. Because she was so good at talking, she convinced her professors to let her into advanced classes with older students, even though she was just a first-year student. Can you believe she convinced them to let her into those classes? And she would talk a lot with her professors after class about her big ideas for changing the world. One of Holmes' big ideas came from her fear of needles. She wanted to create technology that could use a tiny amount of blood instead of the large amount they usually needed. This got the attention of the head of Stanford University, Dean Channing Robertson, who became her first mentor. He even risked his career to support Holmes and introduced her to important scientists so she could build connections. But not everyone was convinced by Holmes' enthusiasm. One of her professors, Dr. Phyllis Gardner, thought that Holmes' ideas were just ideas. At that time, Holmes had only taken one basic course and was too quick to try to change the world without a solid foundation. With the technology they had back then, Holmes' dream was almost impossible to do. But she didn't want to hear the word impossible. At the end of her freshman year, Holmes worked as an assistant in a laboratory in Singapore, where her main task was to use needles to collect blood samples for research on the SARS virus, severe acute respiratory syndrome. This experience gave her immense inspiration. In 2003, Holmes was really determined and dropped out of school to follow her dream. Like other successful people who dropped out of school, she wanted to change the world and quickly filed her first patent. This design was almost exactly like her idea. A small medical device that you could wear, with tiny needles that could go through your skin to check your health all the time and even give you medicine. At first, she called the company Real-Time Cures. But later, she changed it to Theranos, a combination of the words therapy and diagnosis. At this time, it seemed like Holmes was on the right track. She knew what she wanted to do and was working towards her goal. But how did it all go so wrong? Why did Holmes, who everyone used to admire, become the center of a scandal? What made Elizabeth Holmes so famous in the medical tech world was this device called Edison. They said it was like a mini blood testing lab. Super high-tech and could do a whole bunch of complicated tests with just a tiny drop of blood from your finger. On Theranos' website, they claimed that Edison could do over 240 different tests, just like a regular lab. Checking for cancer, measuring cholesterol, seeing if you have diabetes. All of that quick and easy. No needles, no vials, just a drop of blood and bam. 30 minutes later, you've got your results. It sounded incredible, like it could change how we do blood tests. Now, blood testing in America is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's been controlled by these big companies doing things the old way, just like in a lot of other countries. If you need a blood test in the US, you have to go to the doctor's office, get your blood drawn, and then they send it off to some lab. It's a pain in the neck, and it takes a long time to get the results. That's why everyone was so excited about what Elizabeth Holmes came up with. It was a totally new idea. This Edison device, if it really worked, could completely change healthcare. Imagine this little device you could use at home. It would be perfect for people with long-term illnesses who need regular checkups. Not only would it save a lot of time, but it would also be a whole lot cheaper. A really big deal for millions of people. As mentioned earlier, Elizabeth Holmes had strong support from Channing Robertson, an important person at Stanford University. Not only did he become the first member of Theranos board, but he also used his connections to help Holmes find investors. This gave the startup a lot of opportunities. Holmes' family also helped a lot in the early stages. One of the first people to invest in Theranos was Larry Ellison, the chairman of Oracle. This guy has billions of dollars. And guess what? He not only bought into Holmes' vision, but he was also close friends with her family, which helped the project. Elizabeth Holmes also used her father's connections in politics and Channing Robertson's fame in the academic world to create an impressive board. The board had big names like former U.S. Secretaries of State, Henry Kissinger and George Shultz, who were powerful people in politics and business. Holmes even invited James Mattis, who used to be the U.S. Secretary of Defense, to join the leadership team. But if you look at the board, it's clear that no one except Holmes had any real experience in biology and medicine. Even Channing Robertson, who was an engineer, not a biologist or doctor, was the only one who could be considered an academic. But having these powerful people on the board got them a lot of good press and helped Theranos' public image. It hid the fact that they didn't have any real experts. By the end of 2004, Elizabeth Holmes had raised $6 million. And by the end of 2010, that number had gone way up to $92 million. She tried to look like the female Steve Jobs because she thought she would change healthcare just like Steve Jobs changed the tech world with Apple. Holmes did a good job of acting like him, always wearing those black turtlenecks just like Jobs. She even made her voice lower, which surprised a lot of people who knew her. This got everyone's attention. And a lot of people online compared how her voice sounded before and after to show the difference. Soon enough, Holmes was a favorite of the media, appearing on the covers of important magazines. And everyone was praising her. But here's the thing. She was really secretive about the company's most important product, the Edison device. Holmes never told anyone any details about how the research was going. And for years, she didn't even have a website with information about it. It wasn't until September 2013 that Theranos finally made a website for the product. After they said they were working with Walgreens Boots Alliance, the biggest drugstore company in the US. This was a big move that made Elizabeth Holmes even more famous. If the Edison device really worked, this partnership could change everything about blood testing. Instead of going to hospitals or clinics, people could get their blood tested right at their local drugstore for much cheaper than the old way of doing things. And they wouldn't even have to buy the machine as soon as the Walgreens partnership was announced. Holmes was everywhere. She was in famous magazines like Forbes and Fortune. In 2014, she was called the world's youngest self-made female billionaire and was number 110 on the list of the 400 richest people in America. But some people didn't believe she was self-made. If you look at Theranos' board, it's obvious that not everyone could get those kinds of connections. In one interview, the host even jokingly said to Holmes, "It seems like the only person not on your company's board is the Pope." After that, money kept coming into Theranos. They raised a total of $400 million, making the company worth a massive $9 billion. By 2015, Holmes had made more deals with clinics and health insurance companies, allowing them to use the Edison for blood tests. And it wasn't just private companies. Theranos even got approval from the FDA to use the Edison for herpes testing. By this point, Holmes was like the biggest star in the healthcare world. But while she was enjoying her success, the people who worked at Theranos were struggling. Many of the employees were experts, excited about Holmes' vision and hoping to make a difference in healthcare. But they soon realized that Holmes, the CEO who gave all those inspiring speeches, had only been in college for a year and didn't know anything about the technology. One of the employees at the company was Taylor Shultz. His grandfather was former U.S. Secretary of State George Shultz. And that's how he met Holmes. He was excited about her vision. In 2013, he had just graduated from Stanford with a biology degree and really wanted to join Theranos, which had just announced its big partnership with Walgreens. At the time, Taylor thought the company was going to be successful. But things weren't what he expected. A lot of Taylor's colleagues felt the same way. Doug Macchia, a researcher with a PhD in biochemistry, joined Theranos in 2012. He said that even though the company was making Edison devices, the machine never really worked. Another, former employee named Justin, said that everyone at Theranos was paranoid and suspicious. Elizabeth Holmes was always watching her employees and told them not to talk to people in other departments. This made the work environment really secretive, and people didn't know what was happening with the company. Even though the Edison was supposed to do these tests with just a finger prick of blood, that's not how it actually worked. In the Walgreens partnership, many of the tests still required the old-fashioned way of drawing blood. When asked why the machine wasn't being used as promised, Holmes always gave vague excuses. And when the Edison was used, the results were often inaccurate, sometimes even contradicting themselves. Even though the Edison was supposed to do these tests with just a drop of blood from your finger, that's not how it actually worked. In the Walgreens partnership, many of the tests still used the old way of taking blood. When people asked why they weren't using the machine like they promised, Holmes always gave excuses that didn't make sense. And when they did use the Edison, the results were often wrong and didn't make sense. While they were developing the product, some dying cancer patients gave their blood to help improve the Edison. But the machine was so messed up that their blood samples were left out in the light during testing, making the results no good. These results didn't affect the patient's treatment. But the researchers felt bad about using the blood of people who were already so sick for nothing. And you know what Holmes said about all this? Don't let this get out, keep testing. The way she acted made a lot of employees leave their jobs. But even after they left, they couldn't say anything because of their contracts and pressure from investors. By 2015, a reporter named John Carreyrou from the Wall Street Journal started an investigation in secret. He had heard rumors from people in the healthcare world that the Edison device wasn't as good as they said it was. Carreyrou talked to a lot of people who used to work at Theranos, and some of them told him what was happening. A few even risked their jobs to give him secret documents. When Holmes found out someone was investigating her, she immediately hired a team of lawyers and threatened to sue the reporter, the Wall Street Journal, and the whistleblowers. She didn't want them to publish their findings. However, in October 2015, a shocking article was published in the Wall Street Journal, revealing the truth about the Edison machine. The article explained that of all those blood tests that Theranos claimed to be successful, less than 10% were actually done using the Edison. That same night, Holmes went on TV and attacked the Wall Street Journal, calling it a fake news outlet just trying to get clicks. She even boldly declared, "We will soon release detailed scientific data to prove the accuracy of the Edison." But just a day later, Theranos secretly stopped using the Edison for all tests except for the herpes test. And this was mainly because of pressure from the FDA. That month, the FDA published 2 reports that showed 14 serious problems with the Edison. They also said that the blood collection tubes that Theranos used were not safe to use. When this kind of scandal happens, most people would probably try to hide, but not Holmes. After the truth came out, instead of admitting she was wrong, she went to a Fortune summit and blamed other people for the company's miscommunication. And she didn't stop there. Holmes changed the board and gave the 2 former secretaries of state, Henry Kissinger and George Shultz, different jobs. She also created an independent medical committee to make the company look better and get people to trust them again. But even though she tried all that, things just kept getting worse for Theranos because John Carew was investigating more and more. The giant supermarket chain Safeway had invested $350 million to build mini clinics in their stores to offer blood tests with the Edison. But when they realized the machine didn't work, they ended the deal. In January 2016, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, said that Theranos' California lab wasn't following the rules and was putting patients in danger. They told the company to fix the problems within 10 days. So Walgreens had to shut down all the testing centers they had set up with Theranos. By March 2016, Theranos still hadn't fixed the problems. So the CMS gave them an ultimatum and threatened to ban Holmes and the chief operating officer, who also happened to be her boyfriend, Sunny Balwani, from working with blood tests ever again. Finally, in May 2016, Sunny quit or was fired. Because of all the problems, Holmes decided to change the board of directors. She added 3 new members, including William Fogg, who used to be the director of the CDC, to try to make the company look better and more trustworthy. To show they were serious about making a clean break from the past, Theranos canceled all the blood test results from the previous 2 years. It was the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter. Even though she was trying to fix things, Holmes couldn't keep Walgreens as a partner. In June 2016, Walgreens ended the deal with Theranos. Holmes' net worth, which was once $4.5 billion, disappeared. And the company, which Forbes had said was worth $9 billion, was now worth only $800 million. Elizabeth Holmes, who everyone thought was going to be a star, was a total failure. She was back to the beginning with nothing but a bad reputation. The government said she couldn't run any blood testing labs for 2 years. But that's not the end of the story. While all this was happening, Theranos came out with a new product called Minilab. It was another small testing device. Instead of opening clinics like before, Holmes changed her plan and tried to sell the device at a conference for lab professionals. She was trying to get around the ban. She couldn't be involved with blood testing anymore, but she was still allowed to do research and development. Theranos also laid off a lot of people, saying they needed to focus on their new product. But in October 2016, they had more problems. An investor sued Theranos for fraud, and Walgreens sued them too. They wanted their $140 million back. Both lawsuits were settled without going to court, but Walgreens only got $14 million back. Almost nothing compared to what they'd lost. By 2017, other customers started wanting their money back from Theranos. The company had to shut down its last lab after failing another inspection. And it wasn't just about the money anymore. Theranos was in serious legal hot water. In March 2018, the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, charged Holmes and Sunny Balwani, Theranos COO, and her ex-boyfriend with massive fraud, including exaggerating the company's technology, operations, and financial performance. During the investigation, Holmes, who was always so confident and good with words, said, "I don't know," to over 600 questions. By June 2018, Both Holmes and Sonny were charged with fraud and conspiracy and could go to prison for up to 20 years. But neither of them said they were guilty. Theranos, after a long and bumpy road of failures and crises, finally shut down for good. Then, in September 2020, a court document revealed that Elizabeth Holmes planned to use mental health issues as part of her defense in the upcoming trial. She claimed that for 10 years, Sonny Balwani, Theranos' COO, and her ex-boyfriend had been abusive and controlling towards her. Holmes also alleged that she had been sexually assaulted in 2003 while a student at Stanford, and that these experiences had deeply affected her mental state, leading to bad decisions at work. Because of these accusations, Holmes and Sonny had to be tried separately. Holmes' trial was supposed to start in December 2020, but it was delayed a few times because of the pandemic. During this time, she started going out in public with her new boyfriend, Billy Evans. In March 2021, she was pregnant, so she asked to delay the trial again. Finally, Elizabeth Holmes' trial started in August 2021. In court, she argued that she was a victim of abuse, which caused her mental instability, and tried to convince the jury that her motives were pure and that she genuinely wanted to change the world. Holmes insisted that she raised money for legitimate research purposes, not to scam people. But guess what? They had a recording of Holmes lying to investors. In January 2022, she was found guilty of financial fraud. The ironic thing is, even though she was found guilty of scamming investors, she wasn't found guilty of hurting patients, the very people who were really hurt by Theranos' wrong test results. Those patients didn't get any money, and no one cared about what happened to them, even though the company really messed up their health and trust. While she was waiting for her trial, Elizabeth Holmes was out of jail because she paid a $500,000 bond. In September 2022, she tried to get a new trial, saying that a witness for the prosecution had changed their story. But the witness said the same thing in court, so Holmes' request was rejected. Finally, in November 2022, Holmes was sentenced to 11 years in prison and had to start her sentence on April 27, 2023. 3 weeks later, her ex-boyfriend, who was the COO of Theranos, Sonny Balwani, was sentenced to almost 13 years in prison. People wondered why Holmes was sentenced but didn't have to go to jail for another 6 months. It was because she was pregnant with another baby. They let her stay out of jail longer so her baby wouldn't be born in prison. Right before she had to go to jail, Elizabeth Holmes' lawyers tried to get the judge to change his mind so she could stay out of jail a little longer. But on May 30, 2023, she couldn't delay it anymore. She finally went to jail, the one she didn't want. This is one of the saddest cases we've seen. A lot of people have been talking about Elizabeth Holmes, wondering if she's a liar or what kind of person she is, but what's even more important is that the system failed. In the world of big money, it seems like people forgot about human values. The healthcare industry, which should put patients first, got involved in crazy dreams and greed. The board of directors, full of powerful politicians and business people, didn't care if the Edison worked or not. Even some investors later said they didn't really pay attention to what Theranos was doing. They just wanted to make some quick money. When their investments failed, they could use the law to protect themselves. But the patients who got the wrong test results, and maybe even didn't get the right treatment, were left with nothing. They had no legal protection and no justice. Elizabeth Holmes' story is a lesson about the dangers of greed and what happens when people care more about themselves than doing the right thing. It reminds us how important honesty, transparency, and responsibility are in the workplace, especially when people's lives are on the line. No matter what, doing the right thing and putting the well-being of others first is important. I hope this story will help you think about the value of honesty and inspire you to do the right thing, both at work and in life. Story 6. On March 22, 2015, 29-year-old Denise Huskins and her 30-year-old boyfriend Aaron Quinn were staying the night at Aaron's house in Vallejo, California, approximately 30 miles north of San Francisco. The couple were both physical therapists at a local hospital. However, in the early morning of March 23rd, something terrifying unfolded for the couple. Around 1:53 p.m. on March 23rd, Aaron contacted the Vallejo Police Department to report that Denise had been abducted. The police were immediately dispatched to the scene and began an extensive search for Denise. Officers with the Vallejo Police Department utilized search and rescue dogs and dive teams as they scoured the entire city for the missing woman. As the search for Denise continued, Aaron, Denise's boyfriend, was interviewed by detectives and FBI agents in an undisclosed location. During their interrogation, Aaron provided crucial details about the events leading up to and following the abduction. He and by a bright beam of light shining in their face. The light was followed by a vibrating noise that Aaron attributed to a stun gun. Aaron claimed that he heard a male voice demanding they lie face down on the bed. As he and Denise complied, Aaron explained to the detectives that the intruder blindfolded him using swim goggles, but they had been blacked out with dark tape, making it impossible to see anything. The male intruder then instructed Denise to bind Aaron's wrists with zip ties. The intruder placed Aaron in a closet and covered his ears with headphones, playing a pre-recorded message before calming music. This message instructed Aaron to follow specific instructions and warned him not to interfere with the abductor's plans. During the message, the voice said that both occupants needed to comply or would be hurt by an electric shock or cuts to their faces. Before leaving, the intruder obtained Aaron's financial account information and passwords. Aaron later recounted to the detectives that the intruder placed him on the couch and told him that the professional group was monitoring him via webcam. After being left alone, Aaron said he passed out on the sofa but eventually woke up. Aaron immediately realized that the intruder had stolen his laptop, car, and most importantly, Denise. Panic began to set in as Aaron realized that she was missing. He checked his phone and discovered a chilling voicemail from the kidnapper demanding money in return for her safe return. The intruder threatened Aaron, warning him to tell anyone who asked that he wanted the money to purchase a ski boat. A search for Denise began immediately. Officers with the Vallejo Police Department launched a massive investigation. The spokesperson for the department revealed that the detectives were treating the case as a kidnapping for ransom. As the investigation continued, the detectives involved in the case began to question certain aspects of Aaron's story, such as the details of the intruder's actions, the pre-recorded message, and the delay in reporting Denise missing. The detectives believed that Aaron's account of the incident seemed too elaborate and wondered whether he had played a role in Denise's disappearance. Aaron's mother, who spoke to Dateline, revealed that the detectives treated her son more like a suspect than a victim. They polygraphed him 5 times, placed him in a prison jumpsuit, and provided minimal food and water as they held him for hours in the interrogation room. These tactics were perceived as an attempt to coerce a confession rather than a determined effort to locate Denise. Despite Aaron's claims that an intruder had abducted Denise, the lack of evidence and discrepancies in his story led the detectives to consider alternative possibilities. They believed that Aaron might have harmed Denise and then concocted the story of the intruder to cover his tracks. However, without concrete evidence, they were unable to prove this theory definitively. Just over 30 hours after Denise vanished, reporter Henry Lee received an email with an audio file attached. This file, claiming to be a proof of life message from Denise, sparked a media frenzy and left investigators with questions. When Henry Lee opened the audio file and heard a female voice, it was undeniably Denise's. In the recording, Denise spoke about the day's biggest news. A German airliner had crashed in the Alps, resulting in the loss of 150 lives. Denise also mentioned her first concert, where she watched Blink, 182 and Bad Religion with her friend and her friend's mom. On the surface, this recording seemed to be a clear indicator of Denise's survival. By mentioning current events and specific details of her own life, Denise appeared to confirm that she was aware of her surroundings and had the means to communicate with the outside world. However, reporter Henry Lee couldn't help but harbor doubts. One aspect that caught Henry Lee's attention was Denise's voice. He noticed something out of the ordinary. It lacked any signs of fear or distress commonly associated with someone who had been abducted. Instead, Denise's tone seemed casual, as if she were talking to a friend over coffee. This discrepancy raised suspicions that this recording may have been staged or altered in some way. As news of Denise's abduction spread, her friends heard the recording and were deeply worried about her safety. Despite the message claiming that she was alive, her loved ones were in the dark about the specific circumstances surrounding her disappearance. All they had to go by was her voice on the recording. When Dateline interviewed Denise's friends, they expressed no surprise at the calmness evident in her recording. They claimed that they had been with Denise at the Boston Marathon in 2013 when a terrorist attack occurred. It was Denise who remained composed and took charge, leading herself and her friends to safety. Approximately 45 hours after Denise was first reported missing, the Vallejo Police Department announced that she had been located in Huntington Beach, California, approximately 400 miles south of Vallejo where she had last been seen. This discovery raised suspicions among detectives, as Denise was raised in Huntington Beach. The detectives also knew that no ransom demands had been received, which left them questioning why her abductor had ultimately let her go. According to the spokesperson for the Vallejo Police Department, Denise spoke to the police in Huntington Beach after she said the intruder let her go. However, the Vallejo detectives stated that Denise refused to talk to them. The FBI became involved and offered a plan to aid Denise and Aaron in their cooperation. Despite this offer, the spokesperson claimed that Denise and Aaron still refused to engage with the Vallejo police directly. The Vallejo Police Department spokesperson said that Aaron Quinn's statement about the intruder and Denise's abduction was such an incredible story that the detectives had a hard time believing it. Upon further investigation, the detectives could not substantiate Aaron's claims. This spokesperson boldly stated that Aaron and Denise had plundered valuable resources away from the community while instilling fear in residents. If anything, the spokesperson argued that Aaron and Denise owed the community an apology. Detectives involved in the case felt that there was significant evidence indicating that Aaron and Denise fabricated the intruder and abduction. Aaron's initial story to the detectives stated that he gave the intruder his credit card information, but further investigation revealed that no one attempted to access his bank accounts. Additionally, Aaron claimed that the intruder had called him a few times from a blocked number, yet the detectives believed that Aaron may have pre-programmed another phone to call his cell to fool them. One day after the Vallejo Police Department held their press conference condemning Aaron and Denise, Denise visited the Vallejo Police Department and spoke to the detectives. During her interview, Denise revealed that in addition to being kidnapped, she had also been sexually assaulted. This revelation shocked the detectives, who had initially dismissed Denise's claims as a hoax. Denise's case took a twist when a reporter named Henry Lee received an email that seemed to provide evidence of Denise's innocence. This email, purportedly written by the person who claimed to have abducted Denise, challenged the accusations against her. The email writer expressed anger at the suggestion that Denise had fabricated her story. They emphasized that they would not stand by and watch the life of a good person be ruined by false accusations. To support their claims, the writer attached 2 images to the email. In the first image, there was a water gun painted black with a flashlight attached to it. While this might seem innocent, the water gun could resemble a real weapon in the darkness. The second image depicted a bedroom with cardboard on the windows. According to the writer, this is the room where they held Denise during her abduction. These images, if genuine, potentially added credibility to the writer's statements. However, without additional evidence or verification, their authenticity remained in question. Denise Huskin's abduction case remained shrouded in controversy, with many people questioning the truth behind Denise's claims. News of Denise's abduction and return hit the media like a firestorm. Reporters dubbed the event the Gone Girl case, due to its resemblance to the novel and movie, which were centered around a woman who faked her disappearance to frame her husband for murder. The insinuation that Denise and Aaron had lied about the break-in and kidnapping infuriated their loved ones. Comparisons were drawn between the fictional case in Gone Girl and the real abduction of Denise Huskins. The media focused on similarities between the characters in the plot, fueling speculation and conspiracy theories. This comparison added to the intrigue and captivated the public's attention, adding fuel to the media frenzy. Furthermore, Denise and Aaron were subjected to harassment and online abuse. Trolls and anonymous individuals targeted them on social media, sharing their personal information and spreading misinformation. Their reputations became tarnished and their personal lives were invaded. The impact of online harassment on individuals is severe and long-lasting, further exacerbating the emotional toll of the abduction on the couple. Denise's friends were deeply disturbed by these accusations. They knew Denise as a person of honesty and integrity, and they could not bear to see their friend being portrayed as a liar to the world. Those who loved Denise believed that her abduction was a genuine event, and they stood unwaveringly by her side. The media frenzy surrounding the case intensified, and Denise and Aaron found themselves the center of a media storm. They were subjected to intense scrutiny and speculation, with many questioning their motives. Denise and Aaron faced immense pressure. However, on June 5, 2015, just months after Denise's abduction, a similar crime rocked Dublin, California. This incident would provide crucial evidence contradicting the hoax accusations in Denise's case. Around 3 a.m., an intruder broke into a home in Dublin. The homeowner, awoken by the commotion, found himself face to face with the intruder. The intruder shone a flashlight in his eyes, uttering chilling words. He informed the homeowner that he had kidnapped his 22-year-old daughter. This homeowner and his wife, understandably terrified, found themselves in a struggle for their lives. Sensing an opportunity to escape, the wife ran to retrieve the cell phone. Her husband, displaying quick thinking, yelled to his wife, "Get the gun." This command caught the intruder off guard, and he quickly fled the scene. The husband and wife's daughter were in the bedroom, safe. When the police arrived at the scene, they found several items the intruder had left behind, including a cell phone. The detectives managed to trace the phone found at the Dublin crime scene to 38-year-old Matthew Mueller. After obtaining a search warrant for Matthew Mueller's arrest, officers headed to the family cabin in South Lake Tahoe, where they believed he was hiding. Upon arrival in South Lake Tahoe, officers arrested Matthew and took him into custody. The subsequent search of Matthew's home revealed several crucial pieces of evidence. First, investigators discovered a BB gun that matched the description provided by Denise's abductor. Additionally, investigators found a super soaker painted black and equipped with flashlight and laser pointer, the same one depicted in an image sent to reporter Henry Lee by the kidnapper. Furthermore, investigators stumbled upon a room in Matthew's cabin that bore a striking resemblance to the one described by Denise's abductor to Henry Lee. The windows were boarded up and the room appeared secluded. In addition to the BB gun and super soaker, investigators recovered a pair of swim goggles with lenses covered by black tape. Intriguingly, a long blonde hair was attached to the tape. This hair sample was sent to the California State Crime Lab for analysis, and the results came back as a match for Denise. This revelation undermined the hoax theory and raised suspicions that Matthew was involved. Furthermore, investigators conducted a thorough search of Matthew's car, finding a number of items of interest. A forensic examination of his GPS navigation system revealed that one of the addresses programmed into the GPS was the location near Huntington Beach, where Denise claimed her abductor had left her. This discovery further strengthened the case against Matthew and suggested that Denise's abduction was more than just a fabrication. Matthew was eventually arrested and charged with battery, robbery, and assault in relation to the break-in that occurred in Dublin, California, several months before the abduction. However, on July 13, 2015, additional charges were brought against him, including kidnapping in connection with Denise's case. As the investigation continued, detectives delved deeper into Matthew's background. They discovered he had enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, where he played the trumpet for the United States Marine Band. Matthew distinguished himself as a decorated Marine during his service, earning several service medals and ribbons and being promoted to sergeant. Despite Matthew never having experienced combat, he developed severe mental health struggles that he attributed to what he referred to as the Gulf War syndrome. As a result, he asked to be relieved from his duties as a police officer. His request was granted, and he received an honorable discharge. Following his graduation from Pomona College in 2003, Matthew moved to Boston and started at Harvard Law School. During his time there, he became passionate about working with immigrants and refugees. As a result, he remained at Harvard as a research assistant to the university's Immigration and Refugee Clinic. After a few years on the East Coast, Matthew grew tired of life in Boston. In 2019, he relocated to Silicon Valley, where he passed the California bar exam. However, he never registered for the actual bar. Despite his lack of registration, Matthew managed to find employment at several immigration law firms, He also founded a non-profit organization that provided pro bono services to immigrants with mental illness. In 2013, Matthew's law license was suspended due to his inability to resolve outstanding dues owed to the California Bar Association. During his time at Harvard University, Matthew was diagnosed with major depression with signs of mania. His symptoms worsened over time, leading to a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. Additionally, Matthew developed paranoid delusions, becoming convinced that the government was wiretapping his phone and hacking his computer due to his suspected ties with immigrant clients that the government deemed as terrorists. In early 2015, Matthew relocated to a cabin in South Lake Tahoe, which his family had owned. He became a recluse, rarely sleeping and spending most of his time in a daze watching Batman movies. Matthew's paranoia intensified, and he became increasingly suspicious of those around him. As spring approached, Matthew began experiencing psychotic episodes. During these episodes, he often wore a wetsuit, creating tools from swim goggles and super soakers, and engaged in bizarre behavior. Matthew's psychosis led him to develop a Robin Hood-like plan, where he would kidnap evil wealthy people and demand a ransom in exchange for their release. This act was morally justified to him due to his distorted perception of reality. In September 2016, Matthew pleaded guilty to 1 count of kidnapping and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. He faced additional state charges of kidnapping, burglary, robbery, and 2 counts of sexual assault by force. Denise found herself compelled to take the stand as a trial. Her testimony was intense, as she described in detail the harrowing experience she had endured at the hands of the accused. Acting as his own attorney, Matthew Mueller graced the courtroom in a suit while shackled. However, what stood out the most during this testimony was Denise's remarkable composure as she faced her attacker head-on. As Denise began her testimony, she addressed the jurors, her voice unwavering. She explained how she had initially hesitated to come forward with her account of the sexual assault, fearing that others would not believe her. However, she pressed on, determined to seek justice for the crimes committed against her. Throughout her testimony, Denise's unwavering determination was on display. She described how she refused to let Matthew see her cry or succumb to hysteria. Instead, she closed her eyes and imagined being with her boyfriend during the assault. This mental imagery provided her with a sense of comfort and strength, enabling her to persevere through the difficult memories of her testimony. Matthew Mueller, on the other hand, did not cross-examine Denise. He chose to let her testimony stand without challenging or refuting any aspects of her story. Matthew was deemed incompetent to stand trial for the state charges. However, in November 2022, he was declared mentally fit to stand trial and pleaded guilty to those charges. Netflix's recent release of American Nightmare, a documentary featuring Denise, has provided a comprehensive account of the assault and the abduction she suffered. Each episode of American Nightmare is 45 minutes long and was released on January 17, 2024. Denise, a brave and determined survivor, recounts her harrowing tale, detailing the 2 sexual assaults she endured at the hands of her abductor. During the documentary, Denise provides a detailed account of her experiences. She revealed how the assailant, who claimed to be a military veteran, sexually assaulted her twice. Denise claimed that she told her abductor she had been sexually abused as a child, hoping it would deter him from repeating the offense. However, her hopes were shattered when he assaulted her again. The assault informed Denise that he had recorded both assaults and would release the footage if she went to the police. This terrifying ultimatum left Denise fearing for her safety and the safety of her loved ones. As a result, she initially refrained from disclosing her sexual assault to the detectives, fearing that she may put herself, her boyfriend Aaron, and her family in further danger. In September 2015, Aaron Quinn and Denise Huskins filed a lawsuit against the city of Vallejo, seeking compensation for their false imprisonment, defamation, and false arrest, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The couple alleged that the police department destroyed their reputations through an outrageous, completely unprofessional, and wholly unfounded claim of disparagement. According to People magazine, Aaron and Denise settled with Vallejo officials in 2018 for $2.5 million. Vallejo city representatives admitted that the case was not handled as sensitively as it should have been, and they offered an apology to the couple. The Vallejo Police Department eventually recognized their mistake and issued an apology to Aaron and Denise as well. In 2021, Denise and Aaron wrote a book about their ordeal, shedding light on their experiences and highlighting the challenges they faced in the aftermath of the abduction. The book served as a powerful tool to advocate for change and highlight the importance of victim support. Denise and Aaron are now proud parents to 2 daughters, born in 2020 and 2022. Denise has prioritized instilling a strong sense of self-worth in her daughters and never letting anyone dictate their worth. Aaron echoed these sentiments, expressing his hope that his daughters will grow up to be like their mother. Despite the challenges they faced, Denise and Aaron have shown incredible strength and resilience. Their story serves as a powerful testament to the power of love and determination in the face of adversity. Despite the passage of time, Denise and Aaron are still puzzled by the reason behind Matthew's actions. The documentary reveals that Matthew's original intent was not to kidnap Denise, but rather to abduct Aaron's former fiancée, Andrea. However, it remains unexplained why Matthew specifically targeted Andrea. Denise and Aaron shared their experiences with People magazine, expressing their frustration with the lack of answers surrounding Matthew's motives. Aaron stated that, like many other victims and survivors, they often encountered situations where definitive answers may not surface. He emphasized the importance of moving forward by focusing on what truly matters, such as their children and work. Aaron emphasized that getting stuck on finding answers could be detrimental to the healing process. He and Denise recognized that they may not receive a definitive explanation as to why Matthew targeted them. Despite the lack of closure, they continue to move forward, prioritizing their well-being and the well-being of their children. Denise and Aaron's focus remains on moving forward and rebuilding their lives, regardless of the reasons behind Matthew's actions. What happened during Denise Huskin's abduction case serves as a stark reminder of the potential consequences when hasty judgments are made without sufficient evidence. The Vallejo Police Department's initial dismissal of the case as a hoax undermined the victim's credibility and hindered the investigation process. This incident underscores the importance of due process and the need to thoroughly investigate all leads before dismissing them as false or fabricated. By doing so, law enforcement agencies can ensure that all potential victims receive the attention and support they deserve. Matthew Mueller is currently incarcerated at the Federal Correctional Institution, FCI, in Tucson, Arizona. He is serving a 31-year state sentence that will run concurrently with a 40-year federal sentence. Concurrent sentences refer to multiple sentences being served at the same time, but they do not merge into a single sentence. In Mueller's case, both his state and federal sentences will run simultaneously. According to the court records, Matthew Mueller's release date is July 8, 2049. This date means he is expected to complete his state and federal sentences and be released from prison that day. However, it is important to note that this date is subject to change and can be affected by various factors, including good behavior, participation in rehabilitation programs, and any changes in sentencing laws or regulations. As the rain falls and the night deepens, thank you for being here with me at Radio Night Crime. True crime stories remind us of life's mysteries and the need to stay aware, even in the stillness of the night. If you enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let the sound of the rain lull you to sleep, and until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and let the night keep you company.